words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect. Today's message. Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao. Namaste. Osayana Kitawaya. Ohio. I see you. Manut. Wagwan. Plevet. Habarigani. Akwaba. Madaase. Itese. Jambo. Mimi ni Kofi. Nina Farah. Kukutana de Wewe. Boker Tov, Boker Tav, greetings, grand rising, salutations. Hope all is well with you. Barakalat Shem Yechava, Anai, Kwavai, Kwachilet, and servants of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Shalom, everybody, peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor of Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, of being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for being on with us. I appreciate you so very much. I hope that your day and your journey is going well. And once again, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. Hopefully everybody can see and hear all right. I believe you should be able to. And of course, I'm having maybe issues with the stand today, but that's all right. Prayerfully everybody can see and hear us all right. Thank you again for being on with us as we continue our Q&A session. We do it every other Thursday and Friday, and we actually have to start where we left off yesterday because we didn't get a chance to complete one of the questions. So we'll kind of start from there, but on any platform, thank you for being on. If you're on the platforms I'm pointing to today, which basically are the platforms where you can go into the description, you can feel free to go there, click on the link, the new link that we have there for you all to be able to make sure at the bottom, the questionnaire, I think it's what it's called, and you can be able to put your information in. We're trying to update everybody's information so we can start having persons contact and call everybody. I apologize about last night. I tried to put a Google Calendar message out to everybody and send the email out. I couldn't make it last night. I apologize. Had some things that I personally had to start getting done and making sure that I'm on top of personally behind the scenes and things. So I do apologize for last night. And we'll try to do a makeup this evening. But prayerfully, all is well with everybody. We thank you all again. We appreciate you. We're keeping your prayers lifted up from yesterday. Sisters, as far as at least right now, the women's meeting is supposed to be tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. New York time. We should be on live this evening, and we should be able to do our graft-in session. If you're not able to make it, because I know we're supposed to do it on Thursday, we'll make sure that that is placed on Friday for you. Placed in recording for you if you can't make it. So 8 p.m. New York time will be the live session. 9 p.m. New York time will be the graft-in session. All right. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and jump in. Shalom once again and peace to all. Shalom once again and peace to all. Thank you for being on once again, and much appreciation to you. We're going to go ahead and go through our Q&A session. In advance, thank you to the ministers, staff, moderators, Lottie Dye, everybody, first time listening or watching, one time many, whatever the case might be. We're thankful and grateful to spend some time with each and every one of you on this rising on today. Alrighty, so thank you again. We're going to go ahead and get ready to say our Bible pledge. If you're able to rise to your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or if you're just able to reverence him however you might be able to. And if you can go ahead and get ready to repeat after me, I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and say shalom to everybody. Once again, peace. How you doing, Sister Carla? How you doing, Callum? How's everybody doing on all the platforms? How you doing? Ache Yechasav or Ak Yechasav. Different dialects of saying brother. How you doing? Willie, Joseph, Alexander, Empress, Robert, Sister Deborah, Lee, Kennedy. And if I miss anybody on any platform, church to my head, not to my heart, forgive me. You guys are going to go away for just a second. I want to make sure that we got everybody on the right signal to begin with. We had a pretty decent day yesterday with our signals and everything being on the platforms we are. All right. Mic check 1 2 before we get started. Mic check 1 2. Testing 1 2. Can everybody see and hear me? All right. Yes, no, maybe so. Mic check 1 2. Can you see me? Can you hear me? All right. Yes, no, maybe so. Prayerfully so. Loud and clear. All righty. Okay. Okay. Hey, Chuck, is that all you got? Is that as simple as your mind is? I think it's not, but if it is, if that's all you got, I mean, I guess that's just where you are in life. Praying for you. Hopefully that you'll find some peace so that you don't have to try and dismiss or try to disintegrate the peace of others. Right? It's not gonna work on me. And you know what? Life, if I be honest with you, man, life be life, and life be trying to break us down and stuff like that. But I'm starting to realize certain things that you just got to be obedient and push through no matter what. So if you thought that little thing right there was going to do something to me, right? I'm thankful and grateful that you're proving to me that I must be great enough for somebody such as yourself to try and stop what I'm doing. But, you're going to have to troll a little bit better than that. And shalom to everybody. Thank you for the love. How you doing, Brother Rodney? Jamaica, is it good or bad? Is it decent or not? I'm not sure what the question is. Right? I mean, whatever you want to do with that, feel free. I don't know. So let's go ahead. I mean, I guess of course there's spots that are great, there's spots that are not, just like anywhere else. But it's definitely better being around a lot of persons who are not necessarily hating you because of the color of your skin. That's probably best. You probably don't like that answer. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. You can just put your hand in the air, just repeat after me for those who do this and are true to this and are not new to this. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechavach. Aman. His name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated or go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. So this is day number 2 of Q&A. And of course, we focus coming through a biblical prism, a biblical lens. Any questions, comments, or concerns that you have, even if it's not Bible-oriented or oriented in the series we've been doing. The series we're in the midst of, by the way, is called Reversing the Curse, means revisiting the lie. And so today is the second of Q&A sessions. We do every other Thursday and Friday. And we increased it to that because we know we get an influx of questions. How you doing, Elder Anais? So that's why I'm doing 2 days in a row. We actually kind of didn't get to answer one of the questions yesterday, so we're going to go there. Somebody had asked for us to go through Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and Daniel chapter 11. Hey, how you doing, Brother Dwayne? I think they changed something on YouTube. They're changing the way you guys' names pop up. So if it takes me a minute to get your name, forgive me. I'm not used to the way they're showing. How you doing, James? Thanks for being thanks for being on, and thank you y'all for the love. So here we go. So when we talk about these different things, with Daniel chapter 2, if you were with us yesterday, I'm going to kind of, if you don't comprehend all the stuff, just go to the end of our video from yesterday, the end of our live video from yesterday, and you'll be able to discover what we're talking about today. In Daniel chapter 2, what basically happened was that you had the dream. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He asks for everybody to interpret it, but he doesn't tell them what the dream's about. And if they can tell him what it's about and then interpret it on top of that, he knows that they are worth what he's paying them, basically. And nobody in the court can get it. He's getting ready to take everybody's life. Hananiah, Michael, and Azariah, they come together and they pray. They're able to pray, and then he gets the Lord after that downloads into Daniel what the dream is about. He tells them about the statue, gold, silver, bronze, iron and clay, which basically is Iraq, which is Babylon, Medes and Persians, Greece, Romans, and Christianity. And then he explains more about the dream. Then Daniel chapter 7, he gives it in 4 beasts. The 4 beasts, which are 4 ways of governance, are the lion with wings, the bear hunched over, the leopard with 4 heads, and the beast with diverse lusts, basically representing the 4. Before you get to the mixing of iron and clay, the mixing of iron and clay being Christianity. We know this today. Daniel probably wouldn't have had a clue as to what this is, but he's putting it down. He's getting more information. And so we went through that yesterday. We answered a question very briefly right after that. I think it had to do with his salvation for everybody, or is it just for those who are Jews, which we answered that real quick. And then I promised that we would get back to the question where we left off today, right? So we finished there, And you said, bless the people in Sudan. Well, pray for the people of Sudan. Hope that they're doing righteousness, because it's not always about that. And then also, um, one way you could barak or bless them or think about them or take care of them is deal with the persons who start that stuff. CIA, United States, United Nations, China, right? Like everybody just goes, "Oh, there's stuff in Sudan that you're not taking care of. We're not even talking about it." Yeah, because the persons who should be giving you the news about it are also the persons who control not only the news but control that situation. So yes, so prayers have been up for Sudan even before everybody wanted to talk about what's recently happening. Prayers have been up for Sudan, and prayerfully, if you really want to take action to give a chabad or true love towards them, we start dealing with that and start realizing that we need to stop worrying about that government not only being over us, but trying to be over everybody and being puppeteers, if you will. But anyways, so Daniel chapter 11 though is where I'm headed. Daniel chapter 11 is where I'm headed, and in Daniel chapter 11, to finish up the question from yesterday, I forget who it was that gave the question, forgive me, but at least you'll be able to see that we went over. I told you we'd answer it first thing. So Daniel chapter 11 is based off of all that. So here we go. We'll start at verse 1, and we can see very quickly now that we've had that conversation from yesterday in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, it rolls right in to Daniel chapter 11. How you doing, Brother Dennison? How you doing, Davey Lee? Thank y'all for the love. Appreciate you. So in Daniel chapter 11, it says this, verse 1. It says, also, or matter of fact, excuse me, if you guys would like to turn there, feel free to turn there, please, if you can. So we read this together. So once again, in all you're getting understanding, make sure that you get the word. Make sure you're not just listening to me, but you're listening to what the actual word says about it, so you can study for yourself. How you doing, Sister Taylor? Yes, that is my fire alarm. And once again, I'm going to say, I actually tried to figure out some stuff and I couldn't, but I'm going to say this one more again. The fire alarm that's there, it is an old fire alarm. It's actually on the ground. It's not actually even connected. It's an old system. This is a very old home. And so it's not even the squeaking that's coming from the alarm. The squeaking is coming from something that's in the walls and stuff like that. I don't know how to stop it. And I'm not going to cut across a bunch of electricity, not being an electrician, not knowing what I'm doing. So unfortunately, this is the only time I'm going to talk about it. Anytime somebody mentions it, I'm just going to be honest. We don't have to mute it or anything unless it becomes annoying in the chat. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to address it again. It is what it is. All right. I do this every time. It is what it is, right? If you're genuinely concerned about my safety, then thank you for that. Otherwise, most of you are just trying to find something to troll. It is what it is. So how you doing, Michael Cooper? Sorry for saying the whole name once again. We have to find nicknames for all the Michaels and all the Deborahs and all the Thomases, etc. We have a lot of persons with the same name. Alrighty. So here we go. Daniel chapter 11, verse 1. Prayerfully you're there with us. Daniel chapter 11, verse 1, and all those things, right? Daniel chapter 11 and verse 1. All right. Daniel chapter 11, verse 1. It says, also in the first year of Darius the Mede. See, once again, so for persons go, Persian, it's known as the Medo or the Medo Persian Empire, right? But anyways, also in the first year of Darius the Mede. So this is now, Daniel has gone from Babylon, and now we're talking about the first year of Darius. Darius comes before Xerxes, right? So we're talking about Babylon into what? Into the bear, or into the silver, or into the lesser empire, right? That's about to come, that we just talked about yesterday in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. I'm confused. Confused about what, Jerome? Little things like that don't bother me. You got to actually come with something, or if you're genuinely concerned about something, let me know. How you doing, double OG, triple OG? So Daniel chapter 11, verse 1, also in the first year of of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Okay? And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, pay attention, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up against the realm of Grecia, or Greece, right? So if you're not aware of what that is, right? We just literally see, so we've literally seen now the dream, and we see literally right there in the word Babylon. Now he's talking about Persia, Medo-Persian Empire, and then he says, and the last king of the Medo-Persian Empire is going to stir up the Greeks. He's going to what? He's going to stir up the Greeks, right? So in all those different things, he's going to do what? He's going to stir up the Greeks. Anointed to be, anointed to do what? To try and get them out there. I love it. Come on, trolls. Y'all are proving that we doing big things. I appreciate you. All right. So he's going to stir up the Greeks. He's going to do what? He's going to stir up the Greeks. So we just talked about that. This is proving what we talked about yesterday. Gold, silver, bronze, Babylon, Medo-Persians, Greeks. Who comes after the Greeks? We know that's the Romans. So we're already seeing what we talked about in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7 comes to light in Daniel chapter 11. Right? All right. So he says he'll stir up Greece. And we know this happened because Greece became what we call now Greece. It really was nothing more than Greek states or Greco-Roman city-states. And I'm not even sure if they would have called them that. Not Greco-Roman, but Greek city-states. And I'm not even sure if the Greeks would have called them that because these persons who spoke similar language did not necessarily mess with each other. Matter of fact, they didn't even worship the same deities or deists, the same spirits. Right? And how you doing, Sister Deborah? L. Johnson, thanks for being on. So they didn't even worship the same, right? So we're seeing already the word in Daniel written 600 years before Christ, correct? 600 years before Christ. We have evidence. We know that this was written 600 before somebody goes, oh, you guys be making stuff up and blah, blah, the white man created that. No. This was something written hundreds of years, right? BCE or before Christ, okay? So we're seeing already exactly what Daniel 2 said and what Daniel 7 would come to be is now happening in Daniel chapter 11. All right, right? So watch this, verse 4. Once again, and when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. Right? Right? And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be picked up even for others beside those. This is talking about the leopard with four heads, right? The leopard with four heads representing Greece. Swift, strong, Alexander the Great's the head of it. All of a sudden he died. Now there's four heads of it. And after that, there will be others who will rule the same places that used to be under one dominion, right? Babylon was the empire. The Medo-Persians come right after that. The Medo-Persians get to their fourth king. That fourth king becomes extremely rich. He starts pressing against persons that he probably shouldn't have pressed on. The Greeks come together all of a sudden to become what we now today think of as Greece. They then fight back. Philip of Macedonia becomes really powerful and develops the whole thing with the phalanx formation. All of a sudden, he is off, more than likely by a combination of his wife, maybe even Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great then is able to take power. Alexander the Great then takes his army. He ends up dying. It ends up getting split four ways. Four ways, and then after that, others, right? The four ways, for example, you think of as Asia, the four places like Asia, and what you guys call Greece, and even India, and even Kemet, which becomes Egypt. How you doing, Sister Greta? Shalom and peace to you, right? And not, right? So these things will be divided. It's telling us right there. Now, Daniel chapter 11, verse 5. The king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. All right, the king of the south. If we're looking down south, who is the most south? Of those four that we just mentioned, India, Asia, which India, you can kind of say Asia, but India, Asia, Greece, and Kemet, or Egypt, right? So it will become strong, right? All right, now verse 6. And out of that, somebody will become, there will be stronger. Let's keep on going. Daniel chapter 11, verse 6. And in the end of the years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Who are we talking about down south that's going to get with the king of the north? Julius Caesar comes down, right? This is why it's important that we recognize that this stuff is not just only stop at Revelation and think that nothing else is happening, that Yah's word and his will just stops, and that his word is no longer true or is no longer pure. You let these persons tell you that this stuff doesn't have anything to do. Hey, how you doing, Sister Sage? Great to have you on. How you doing? Right? It's important that we don't allow persons to tell us this stuff, because we see right here it continues. This is historically relevant, right? This is accurate. This is we're getting something that's written 600 years before Christ, or for those of you who still want to do the common era, 600 BCE, and we're seeing everything line up. Okay, right? So this is not to be fooled with. Okay, watch this. And it's right, verse 7. And if you don't think Julius Caesar, think about Julius Caesar, then think about Mark Antony. It works either way. Matter of fact, if I be honest, Mark Antony probably works better. Because of the child or the stuff. But Julius Caesar and Cleopatra also had a child. Mark Antony and Julius Cleopatra actually have, is it 3 more children or 2 more children? Yeah, I think maybe two more children. Well, Mark Antony and her either had 2 or 3, and Julius Caesar and her had 1. And then it will be Julius Caesar having an adopted son who some believe might actually have been his son, who will actually, his son, or adopted son, will come down, right? It will actually then take the life of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra's son, and then take the other children and have his sister raise them in Africa. Right? That's how, that all this is right there, right? Now watch this, verse 7. But out of the branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and he shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and he shall deal against them and shall prevail, and shall also carry captives of Kemet or Egypt at that time, their gods, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years king of the north. This is the person we just talked about, right? Julius Caesar's son, Augustus Caesar, many of you know him as, but he actually basically he takes on the same name as Julius Gaius Caesar. He's basically Julius Caesar Jr. So he goes down, defeats them, takes stuff. Cleopatra tried to hide herself and fake like she was going to burn all the gold and riches and stuff. They were able to sneak up into the place that she had hidden and sealed off from everybody, and then she basically ends up dying locked away in that place. They take all the gold and all the riches and everything, and they take slaves, and they do a whole triumph, which basically is parading the persons who you have defeated. That's where parades come from. Parades come from when the persons you defeated, you drag all the stuff and show in a way of propaganda to show how you're more powerful and strong and all the stuff, and everybody should bow down to you. This is right out the Bible, right? So Daniel chapter 11 verse 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land, but his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through, and shall return and be stirred up even up in his fortress. Watch this, 11:11, Daniel 11 verse 11. And the king of the south shall be moved with, I always mispronounce this name or this word, because you could say choler or kohler or collar. I think it's supposed to be collar, Choler, but I'm just gonna be honest with you. I know I'd be messing that word up. I'm not sure. I'm looking to see how I'm supposed to pronounce it. I apologize. I'll be messing that word up. I need to be better. Especially I'll be talking about etymology. So, basically, and by the way, this word actually means he shall be moved with bitterness. So I guess it's choler. It is more like choler. I guess it would be Choler, right? But he'll be moved with bitterness, right? And he will be moved with bitterness and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. right? Now we're talking about the north and the south. What happens later on where there's a north versus south, right? What's happening? Well, we're actually past, believe it or not. We could talk about Hannibal and stuff like that, but that actually is something that's kind of past at this moment in time. That actually happens when Rome is first basically coming into power. So that's really dealing with the Greeks and Romans. Some would argue that that's what that's talking about, but that's really earlier in the story of mankind or in history. How you doing, Sister Judith? So we were talking about the North and the South. We can also talk about the fact that there were what we call Moors or many different fights that happened, right? Especially through Muslims and so-called Christians and things of that nature, right? But we can also talk about many different fights that were happening with the Moors and the so-called, Europeans. Remember, Europe actually means anything that belongs to Rome, so we use that out of context quite a bit. But nevertheless, there was a lot of fighting that came there. You can kind of take your pick. I lean towards the second one. Verse 14, and in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Shall stand up against who? Shall stand up against the south. Shall stand up against Africa. And also, watch this, also the robbers of thy people. People means nations. So the nations of the north, right? And even the nations of the south. And the nations of the south, he said there were persons that will come and they will rob you. They shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. So this is what we need to recognize. We're seeing some of this happen now, where these persons who have come, France, who was over all these nations, now France is looking crazy because we have not allowed them to stand. They shall fall. We see that they try to put up statues, even of Gandhi and others who hated South Africans and hated us as persons of color, right? But they shall fall. We're seeing all types of stuff, even where everybody's saying, see, focus on Sudan, right? And all the bad stuff that's happened there, where government is trying to mess up things there now because they can't mess up what's happening with Ibrahim. They shall fall. You got to keep that in mind, right? Persons who are now fleeing South Africa and saying that we're the real refugees and you have to stop being reverse racist and you should realize that if you guys had to flee and you guys were put on ships, even though nobody's enslaving you, you're just running away and now you're trying to take away the stuff, which isn't talked about a lot. How we're talking about how so-called Mexicans and other persons are coming and stealing your jobs. Meanwhile, you're allowing persons to come here and they're in hotels and taking your jobs and being given and being subsidized by the government that says that they won't do it for your own people, supposedly your own nation, let alone the persons that are at least right across the border, but they'll do it for somebody else because of their color, right? But South Africa is also, when this is happening, that means we have an opportunity as a diaspora to take back land. They shall fall. I need you to see this, right? This is scripture, right? But they shall fall. They try to do all this stuff, but they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and cast upon a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand. Neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. Verse 17, he shall also set his face. I think we kind of got the gist of this, but I'll do a few more verses. Actually, I don't know. I think we got the gist of it, right? Because it even starts going into stuff like real estate, taxes, all this type of stuff. So Daniel really is, when we're talking about the mixing of iron and clay, talking about Christianity, talking about Christian nationalism, American exceptionalism. Really, we could really say that it's Christian exceptionalism, right? You don't have to do anything, you don't have to follow law, but just because you're a Christian, it means that you already got everything together. And how you doing? I'm sorry, Liber Fatal. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. How you doing? Right? But we're seeing all this stuff. It's mentioned right there. So Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 11. And then when you start putting it together with Genesis chapter 3, you start putting it together with Jeremiah chapter 3. You start putting it together with Isaiah chapter 9. You start putting it together with Revelation chapter 12 and 13. And Revelation chapter 20, verse 12 and 13, which we talked about yesterday, right? Where everybody was so upset and frustrated and everybody was in a tizzy. Because I was saying you have to have faith and works go together, which is what your word says. And we said that we're not going to be anti-Christ. So we read what Christ said, and persons still were against it. I'm not going to go, well, if somebody has a question about that stuff today, we can. But without all that stuff we were talking about yesterday, we see that the word is very clear. And highly repetitive, and we get more and more and more of it throughout the word, which means as we continue to live as a nation, especially those of us that are coming back together as one, it means we will get more and more information as well about us as we continue to live and be faithful to the word and to the law. Amen. So that's kind of a holdover from yesterday. That's us completing what the question was from yesterday. Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and now today we finally got to complete Daniel chapter 11. And if there's any other questions, comments, or concerns on that, you can feel free. But today is Q&A day. It is the second of 2 days. We do 2 days in a row, basically anywhere from like 6 to 7 hours in these 2 days, from 8 a.m. to about 11:30 a.m. normally, to try and answer as many questions as we can. And so we won't do another one of these for another 2 weeks, but we do them every other Thursday and Friday. So if you have a question, comment, or concern today is your day. Everybody always says we don't answer the questions. How you doing, Sister Jennifer? Everybody always says you don't answer the questions. You're not there. You're not thinking. You don't. You guys always are talking, but you don't allow anybody to ask questions. I should be able to ask questions. I agree with you. I didn't like when I wasn't allowed to ask questions either. Thank you for the love, daughter. Right? I didn't like it when I wasn't allowed to ask questions either. Right? We should be allowed to ask questions. We should be allowed to make sure that we have, proper conversation. We should be able to go ahead now. Once again, and thank you, moderators, in advance. We ask for respect. It will give respect back. But we should be able to, right? Even if you're somebody who is part of SOC, I'm not going to be mad or frustrated if you're like, hey, you be teaching on this, and I've been with you these last couple months or these last few years or whatever it is, and I don't like that. We still, we still here, and we still don't mind you asking questions. So please feel free. Today is your day. And how you doing? Is it now, Tigress? Hopefully I'm saying that right. Shalom, peace unto you and to your family. Shalom ma'ashapachi, or shalom or shalom mishkapa, which is just a dialect of saying the same thing I just said. Welcome to everybody. So today is you guys' day. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We're going by Q&A. Please feel free to take advantage of the platforms. Thank you for being on all the different platforms, whether you're joining us live or later on. Also, too, we're still trying to raise funds for the family in need. You guys know how that works. If you do send something throughout one of the places where you send a donation to, just make sure that it says who it's for, so we can make sure that in the description that it's for the family in need, so we can make sure we give it straight to them and it doesn't accidentally get used for something else. That's right. We got to have order and structure. What's the beeping sound? I've already addressed that. I'm not going to address it 75 times today. Anything else? C in the V? Or C in V? I'm sorry. Can you tell us what you see in V? I'm not sure exactly what that means. That Asian is killing you? The Asian. Okay. I don't know about all that. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? This might be a short day today. Oh, and verse 27 of the same. Okay, we'll go back. Daniel 11, verse 27. And both these. Okay. Well, so we have to start at verse 25, I guess, for that. Can we get more clarification? I'm not sure which part you're gonna, because we kind of went through. So we went through the whole thing. I'm not sure. We already had a whole day on the calendar. 2 live sessions ago, is it? Not 2. So we have live sessions on there that say real talk, and then we have live sessions. So 2 live sessions ago, or 2 sessions in the series ago, called the series is called Reversing the Curse Means Revisiting the Lie. On Monday, I believe, whatever Monday's date was, the 18th, the 19th. No, because yesterday was the 20th, the 17th, whatever. Hold on. 15th, 16th, 17th. Yeah, the 17th. If you look up the 17th, we have a whole thing on it. But if you can be more specific, because we kind of went through a few different things. So if you give me something specific with that, but I'm gonna see if we get 25 through 27. Yeah, there is confusion about it, because there's a lot of persons that say a lot of different things about it. So I mean, to be honest, if you're saying go through the whole thing again, we probably say we'll direct you to go back to the live session yesterday, and then on top of it, go through the live session on today. But if there's a specific place that we can start on that, we can feel free to try and do that. But there is a lot of confusion because a lot of persons are getting a lot of different things from a lot of things that are not Israelite or that are not biblical. They're and some of it is Talmudic, some of it is Jewish, some of it is Ashkenazi, some of it is Khazarian, right? So we're having a lot of issues with that. But if there's a specific thing, I mean, because other than that, I'm just going to say the same thing. No offense, I'm just saying I'm going to end up just saying the same thing from yesterday. So if there's a specific place you want me to start, otherwise, because we try to give everybody as much chance for Q&A as possible, I'll probably try and see if we can go somewhere else first. But Daniel chapter 11, verses 25 to 27, it says this, it says, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. So, all right, let me go back to where we left over, or at least closer. Let's just go to verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, and the prince of the covenant. And after the league, right, after the league made with him, he shall deceitfully, or he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and he shall be strong with a small people. Verse 24, he shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the provinces. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. So we're talking about war. We're talking about a lot of different things happening back and forth. We're talking about the king of the north, which really is talking about Western, which really gets us to Western society versus, at this point, Southern Israel, African, Israel scattered. We're talking about now really worldwide, but we're getting north versus south, north versus south, north versus south, right? And if you even know the thought process even with that, in Israel South, we even have high regard. Matter of fact, a lot of places where you will go, if you're looking to see persons who are oppressed, usually look in the South, right? If you're looking for in South Sudan, right, versus other places, if you're looking for the South in Ghana, if you're looking for South Side Chicago, if you're looking for Southeast DC, right? If you're looking for Southern Miami, or if you're looking at a lot of places and you're looking for stuff to be messed up, the South is actually a place, right? The South got something to say. You're not acknowledging our music. I mean, a lot of stuff you'll see over and over again is usually going to kind of be North versus South. A civil war, where most of the chattel slaves or those who are fighting for chattel slavery, where is that going to be coming from, right? The South. Even the persons who are going to become the persons who fight for their own freedom, such as those who are Native American or so-called Black, so-called Negro, African, so-called African American, so-called African, etc. And these persons who are down south will leave to go up north to continue the same fight that they've always had, right? The same way that we have always been fighting against our oppressors, as much as we're just told that we wanted to have the choice of staying slaves and stuff like that. But you'll see this same thing of the South, right? And persons escape the South, go to the North, then come back down South and fight for their own freedom, right? Okay, so we're seeing a continuous thing. Dan, I'm sorry, what were we supposed to go? Verse 27, Daniel 11:26. Yea, or even they that feed the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. Verse 27, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Now this is crucial, right? Because if we take this for what it is, right? If we take this for what it is, then both these kings, both persons who are supposedly fighting for the same thing, shall begin to try and sit at the same table. You know why? Why this is a big deal? Is because, just like somebody was talking about South Sudan, I can't talk about the Southern king without talking about the Northern king. They're both being fed from the same source. Remember, Daniel chapter 2, there's one statue, right? Are you with me? Daniel chapter 2, there is one statue. There's 4 different ways of government, technically 5, but there's one statue, there's one man, there's one entity, there's one being that we should be looking at. He might come represented by many different forms. He might have the ability to have a bunch of stuff, but there's really one person ruling, and both persons have been duped by the same, whether they be of the northern or the southern, right? The new moon it was visible last night. The new moon was visible last night. So it's technically right now Rosh Chodesh Kaya Salav, right? The new moon, so to speak. Because I know somebody will argue the moon wasn't even originally there, which I guess we can talk about that too, because that's another thing confusion. So I guess I can even start there today. But the new moon technically wasn't, the moon wasn't even there. It actually was talking about new Sabbath. Not really. You're talking about something that's in Jewish, like Jewish thought process. But even when they're saying new Sabbath, what they're saying is the position of them. Even if you believe that, what the even Jewish persons are saying is in agreement ultimately, which is the Sabbath is now new because the moon is now new, right? But once again, we're not talking about Sabbath. It's not Rosh Shabbat. It's Rosh Chedash, right? So Rosh being the head of, and the head of the what? Chedash. But anyways, we'll get into that in a second. Okay, well, if it's annoying, then thank you for being on. You can go somewhere else. I'm not gonna. I already told you that's. I've already messed up because I said I wasn't gonna address it. So it is what it is. Hey, Chantel, you said you were looking on Patreon to watch it from the beginning. You can look on YouTube. Sorry, I can't say the platform. They be trying to cancel us for every little thing, but we have playlists. You can look through there. You can look on other platforms that we have as well. If you have problems finding it, feel free to text us or reach out to us, email us, and contact somebody, or even ask in the chat, "Hey, where can I find this stuff?" Somebody will direct you where you need to go. Alrighty. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, I'm sorry. So verse 27 of Daniel chapter 11, which is what the question was asked. If everybody's getting the information from the same table, right? We're getting it from the same table, right? And it says, "For yet the end shall be at the appointed time." So we're getting the information from the same table. If an example of this, Minister Malcolm Shabazz, or as many of you know him today, Malcolm X, he was actually he actually came out and admitted such once they were gonna. He knew his life was gonna be forfeit, and he was being quiet as he was supposed to be, even when he split up, until he realized that they were trying to make him out to be something that he wasn't, and lying on his name. And so he said, "Well, if you guys are gonna kill me anyways, then I'm gonna die with my name intact." And he started coming out and saying what was going on in interviews, including calling out Elijah Muhammad and others for sitting at the same table with persons who were KKK leaders, and they would have these conversations and stuff, and they were getting paid by the same persons. Same thing happens today, where persons who were supporters of KKK are still sitting down with persons who are NOI. The persons controlling both sides, just like Republicans versus Democrats. They're sitting at the same table. If you've never seen it, when they have these meetings upstairs in Congress on C-SPAN and everything, they go downstairs and they eat together. Some of them genuinely dislike each other. Some of them genuinely want to do what they're supposed to do, but a lot of them are just kind of there playing the game, and they realize, and they'll even congratulate each other. "Man, that was decent the way that you got that over on us. I wasn't expecting that." Blah blah. They sit down, they eat, they break bread together. They sit at the same table, right? They do. They sit at the same table. You said the statue represented 5 kingdoms that were eventually destroyed by the kingdom of Elohim. Please explain my interpretation. So we talked about that all day yesterday. Not all day, but a lot of yesterday, and we talked about it to start off for today, right? But they weren't all destroyed. That's the point, is that the statue isn't fully destroyed until the end of the world. That's what the rock that spins and spins and finally hits the statue. That's what happens. The rock comes, right? The rock that is greater than I. It continues to grow and move, and then it destroys. But that we're not at the end of the wicked system of things. That one statue, the gold Babylon, the silver Medo-Persians, right, which we talked about today already, the Greeks, the bronze, the iron, I'm sorry, the Greeks, the bronze, yeah, the Romans, the iron, and then you have the iron and clay, which is Christianity. And ultimately, it will be destroyed. But it hasn't been destroyed yet. Right? We have the Daniel chapter 7, the 4 beasts that back. Okay, excuse me, if you were on this platform, hopefully we're Check 1 2. Did everybody hear us and see us? Yes, no, maybe so. Just to let you know, I'm trying something different here. Apparently, you were charging, but you weren't charging fast enough. So if for some reason we happen to where it you guys go away again, we might have to start. If it goes away again, I'm just gonna start over a whole nother live session, okay? But I'm not sure. I'm trying to get you more juice. Apparently, it wasn't charging enough, so or fast enough to. So hopefully it'll, if nothing else, at least pause and freeze at this level, at this rate that it's going. I do apologize. So we'll try this again. So we're back. And how you doing, Henry? All right, and thank y'all for the love. So yeah, now as far as the calendar, right? So the calendar, and I know this is going to show backwards for most of us on here, so you're gonna have to think backwards. I might be able to show it correctly over here for you guys. Give me a second, but over here you're gonna see it backwards. Over here, I think you guys will be fine as well. I'll try to explain it for those who are listening on the podcast. But basically, this is our calendar that we go by. We use this is not the new calendar, by the way. Those of you who have ordered your new calendar, whatever, you should have gotten it or should be getting it if you didn't get it already. But basically, this is the calendar that we have. We write our Shabbats and everything in here. You have to think backwards on here, sorry. But if you look at it, so today is the 21st. Yesterday was when the moon, or so-called new moon, got into place. Rosh Hashanah Kai Salav. And so we make sure we put on there for you when the Shabbats are. So this is based off of when the moon is at 0 or even when it's first visible. It can be either or. And we try to make sure that we show persons that and teach persons that a lot of there's many different arguments that come with this, because once again, it's not the law of the spirit for many, it's the law of sin, or it's the law of the flesh, it's the law of what others have done and we've mixed into, or it's the law of what we want. So what happens is that a lot of persons, what they do is they go, okay, today they go to in the world says Shabbat is always on Saturday, but that's not how the Hebrew calendar works, as we've explained, right? Like the Hebrew calendar goes by the position of the moon, right? So, and as much as persons want to say, oh no, it's a new Sabbath, it's the position of the moon that even affects the new Sabbath, so whichever way. And once again, it can't be the head of Sabbath if the word Sabbath is not used, right? That's why we call it Rosh Chodesh, or even. Let's do this. Right? Let's do this real quick. Because the law of first mention, right? If we use the law of first mention, then the word we're looking for as far as moon is not even what we use to. So they're right to say it was never technically. Well, let's do it like this. First. So the word moon in Hebrew, right? I'll even go by modern Hebrew. Well, I don't do modern Hebrew that well. I'll do my best attempt, but it's basically yadayak. Yadayak is actually how one would refer to the moon, right? But that's more modern, right? It would actually be yadayak, right? Which you don't see anybody talking about, right? The closest you get is this thing that we call Chadesh, right? But let's go ahead and go to a term that everybody wants. So let's go to what we call new moon. New moon, right? With that saying that's there that everybody argues over, right? New moon. Which once again is, to be honest, what somebody else is trying to use from their culture to explain what is our culture. So let's look at what they're using for new moon. And guess what it is? It's Chedash, or some might say Kedash, right? But it's Chedash. Chedash. And guess what Chedash means? Chedash means month or moon. See, because like I was saying yesterday, moon and month are the same word. If you say month, man, right? The man part is really moon. It technically is mount or month, right? Month is how we say it today. So whenever you say month, you're saying moon. So if you're talking about a new month, you're talking about a new moon. That's not just Hebrew, that's basically the language you speak right now. If you're listening to me and you're able to comprehend the language I'm speaking, then this is the ninth moon, right? But this is a new moon or a new month. The new month is attached to the new moon. So in Hebrew, in Avda, in the original, remember we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. We're literally have persons that don't comprehend that our new month is based off of the position of the moon. So even if you want to say they never said moon, technically you're right if you're speaking modern Hebrew. But Chadesh, right, is month. Chadesh means moon. Chadesh even can mean monthly, right? So for example, I could say Chava Chadesh, right? I could say Chava Chadesh. I could either be, depending on how you want to interpret that, I could be saying the love of Elohim is monthly. I could say the love of Elohim, or I could say Elohim's love is monthly. But either way, right, Chadesh is month or moon or monthly, right? And it's talking about lunar, right? Lunar. Okay, so lunar, what's loon? Loon is the moon. It's talking about the moon. It's talking about that, what some people call celestial body, right? The moon. So you can't talk about Chadesh or Chedash. Sorry, I'm saying Chadesh. I'm sorry. You can't talk about Chedash without talking about month. You can't talk about Chedash without talking about moon. It's impossible. Okay? In the language, if you say in the month, you're saying the moon. So when somebody says that's not even true, that's somebody who once again is, I'll give them credit. The word moon by itself, when you see it in English, when you don't see it described as new moon, it is a different word, at least in modern Hebrew. But if you're looking for the word, if you see the two words, wherever in your Bible you see the two words together, new moon, that combination of word, it will always be chedash, right? Or some people would say kedash or kedash, but it would be chedash. So therefore, chedash is always moon. So when you see anything dealing with the moon, now let's go to some verses real quick. You ready? Now that we're armed with that, watch this. Let's go and just look up. If we look up verses that say new moon, then we can say it like this. And so this is 1 Samuel chapter 20 and verse 5. You said it was wrong to file a lawsuit for racism against the company. Didn't know if you got to answer this yesterday. No, we didn't get a chance to answer it. We can try and talk about that. Well, first of all, I mean, it's kind of a personal thing because it depends on how it is, what they did, what the company's guidelines are, all that, because you're also talking about private and public and different things like that. But we can try to get to that in a second if you like. I don't know how much I can talk about it in this platform because there's certain things too that should be your business and private to make sure that there's nothing that can be used against you in any way, shape, or form. But we'll try and get through this. And there were a couple other questions too. So if we're talking about Chedash, right? 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5, David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is Chedash. Or some people say Kedash, Kechedash, even, right? It is Chedash. It is the new moon. It is the new month. It is the new way of doing things. It's not Shabbat. He didn't say Shabbat. So when somebody tells you, whenever you see new moon, they were saying it was actually a new Shabbat. That's not true. How you doing, Temple of Blood and Honey? It's not true. Right? Yeah, I did. Exactly. So then why you bring it up is foolish. So here you go. Chedash. Chedash. That's saying new moon, right? Or a new month. But you can't separate the month from the moon. You get it? Right? Here we go. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18. And Jonathan said unto David, tomorrow is Chedash, the new moon, and thou shalt be missed because thy seat will be empty. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 24. We're just going to do all the stuff that pops up if I type in new moon. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when Chedash, when the new moon, same thing they've been talking about, when it came, so when the month was new, right? the king came and sat down next to him. Let's get to 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither Chedash, nor Shabbat, nor Sabbath. Now watch this. So persons who tell us, I'm doing well, thank you for asking. Persons who tell us, therefore, okay, Chedash. So it's always, it was really Sabbath. That's not so, because here it tells us specifically, right? And 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23, it makes a distinction that it was neither Chedash or new moon, nor was it Shabbat or the Sabbath. How is that in the scroll if the Sabbath is actually the new moon? If the new moon and the Sabbath are literally, there's a distinction made there. How you doing, Auntie Mary? Praise y'all for you. How you doing, Mo Desire? Right? You see what I'm saying? So somebody's obviously off or lying. Right? Now, if somebody says that I'm off, that's why, once again, I don't come with opinion. I don't come just only how I feel about it or my passion about it. We need sometimes to be able to let the word, or not sometimes, at all times, right? The word should speak for itself. Correct? So, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither Chedash, it's not the new moon or the new month, nor is it the Sabbath, which means that they're not the same thing. Right, should we go on? Let's go on a couple more. Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23. And it shall come to pass that from one Chedash to another, that from one month or one monthly period to another, and from one Sabbath to another. Once again, distinction made. This is once again Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23. The prophet speaking towards the end of Isaiah, right? Right after Isaiah 65, 17, and Elohim will make a new heaven and a new earth. Well, here in the dialect that I use, I believe I'm using the original dialect. You know how I am about that already, big sis. So people be fighting over all this stuff or whatever. We say Chedash, Hedash. There are some that say Chedash, Chedash. There are some that say Kodesh or Kodesh, but that's actually really means spirit, or is a dialect of spirit. But either way, people will fight about that. So if that's the word that you use, I think I'm not the person to go to in that, because that's not the dialect that I'm familiar with. That being said, I guess there are more persons that probably would say Kodesh, but that's actually closer to Jewish or a Jewish dialect. But once again, I'm not gonna argue that. I say Hedash, not even based off of study, language, stuff like that. If it follows the same rules and regulations, because what happens with a lot of persons, I don't want to get into the whole dialect thing, but what happens with a lot of persons is they fight about stuff that they're not really aware of. So a lot of persons speak many different dialects together, which is okay. The reality though is that if you speak a dialect that's normally supposed to be intact, so we here just kind of say Kadesh to keep the dialect that we speak intact. Yeah. So, but Isaiah 66, 23, it shall come to pass, here we go, and so this is talking about prophetically, and it's talking about what's going to happen after a new heaven and new earth, when it's established, the right stuff is going to be established the way it's supposed to be, right after Isaiah 65. So this is extremely valuable information. What does it say? It says there in Isaiah 66, 23, it shall come to pass that from one Chedash, or from one month to another, and from one Shabbat to another. So once again, the new moon and the Shabbat, right, are not the same thing. The Shabbat is affected by the position of the moon or by the month that it's in. Okay? So when persons argue that, it's not a great argument. I don't think we need, I think we got the point of this, right? So just by looking up where it says Chedash or moon or new moon, we see already that somebody trying to tell us one of a couple things is off. If somebody's trying to tell you it never said moon, it said Sabbath, that's not true, right? Because there could be multiple ways of saying a term, but you can't have the month. It's just like when somebody said, we talked about this before, kahasalav, is sin, but it also is a way of saying repentance. Because in Hebrew, you cannot separate one from the other. If you sin, you must repent. If you have repented, it is because you have sinned. Right? So in Hebrew, sin is looked at a lot different. Repentance is looked at a lot different. It is looked at as mandatory, and the two cannot be separated one from the other. Right? So kind of the same thing here with Chedash. If somebody is talking about the month, you cannot separate the month from the moon. Now, Shabbat is affected by the month, so it's still connected, but it's not the same thing. So yes, somebody is correct to tell you that every month the Sabbath is affected, but they are incorrect to tell you that the word Sabbath is actually the word month, right? In translation. That's why we need to let the word speak for himself. We need to confess the word, have the logic of the word. Now, when you don't have that logic and you're not armed with it, you can see, and I can see. And by the way, it's not for me to, I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in, and it's easy for me to forgive because of that. We can see where somebody would make that mistake, especially if you're just listening to what somebody's telling you. But the reality is that Chedash, right, or Kodesh, or, but really is spirit, but if that's what the words you're using, etc., whatever you're using. And sorry, my eyes are closed. I'm just trying to make sure I don't open them up and have all this stuff burning my eyes. But in all these different things, we can see very clearly that the two are separate. That the two are separate. Right? That the two are separate. So that's what we're talking about that. So yeah, and I was talking about yesterday how somebody earlier this week, couple earlier this week had sent me something. A friend, the pastor, had sent me something saying, make sure you tell everybody in SOC that is, give them this video. And the video, so before I just do that blindly, I make sure I watch it, right? And I watched it, and it was a guy, once again, saying that the 22nd, sorry if you see this backwards, right? Sorry if you see this backwards, but hopefully you get the gist. They were saying the 22nd, I'm sorry, it's November. So they were saying the 22nd, which is Saturday, which, by the way, if you using Saturday as Shabbat, we're in the land of our captivity. We're in the world, but not of it. That being said, many of us don't have an opportunity to have true Shabbat, right? So holding Shabbat on a Saturday, right? At least do something, right? Get closer until you can. So no problem. We even operate and do a lot of things on Saturday for those who need to, right? So we do that ourselves. That being said, the actual real new moon, right, is on the 20th, which means that Shabbat would not be on Saturday. And right now, before it was the 20th, on the 17th, Shabbats, if you notice, were on Mondays. So now the new moon is here. And by the way, when I teach this up, this is what I try to tell you guys. So remember, I've taught you guys before, if you're looking at your calendar, you've had a full week. So this is the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? But then in this week, because the moon is going to be new on the 20th, as of yesterday, you have 1 day, 2 days. But then guess what? Because of the new moon, you start again at 1 at Chedash, Ras Chedash, because Ras, or Resh, if you're speaking modern Hebrew with the characters, Resh means the head of. So Resh Chedash is the head of this monthly period, and then this monthly period is called Kayasalav. So in this month we are in now, yesterday, when the moon came up, that was the beginning of day number 1, which we're still in until we get to the moon. Then that begins day number 2, the moon on Saturday being up day number 3, the moon on, etc., right? So now we begin to start counting again by 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it'll be the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we'll continue that pattern down to when the next new moon appears. That will, or when it hits 0. That will be Resh Chedash Tavat, right? And if you notice, there's only 1 extra day there because it's according to the new moon. It's not according to any particular pattern. It's not always going to match up 30 days. It's not always going to match up 31 days. It depends on the pattern of the moon. You know, the moon's pattern changes over and over and over and over again, right? Well, not over and over and over again, but there's a certain after a while, we know the mathematics. We know exactly how far the moon's going to go, when it's going to rotate. This is why they can tell you the moon's going to turn a color on a certain day, is when they tell you it's going to be a full eclipse on a certain day, because we know enough mathematically going on now, from the times of Kemet, which is why yesterday I presented the whole argument, to you, that there is an argument that persons have within our communities and in the diaspora, to where persons will even argue, well, if you can't see it with your human eyes, but some persons have different visions, right? And Moses himself, this is why I'm introduced this yesterday. Moses was educated. He was educated in Kemet. He was educated in Kemet in the house of Pharaoh. This means that Moses would have known astrology on the level that the Kemetic persons did. And Kemetic persons did not need to see the moon to know when it was at zero. This is what you're really looking for, is when the moon is at zero. The whole thing that the moon has to be visible is somebody else's add on to your culture or to your beliefs. When the moon is at zero, that's when it's new. Because even if you cannot see it, Yah can see it. And the calendar, right? Because that's what the sun, the moon, and the stars are mostly for. It's not just only to give light to this and to do this and to make sure your melanin is stirred and to make sure that the seed can grow and all this stuff, but it's actually a calendar. And we said this yesterday, right? The first calendar was not put on papyrus. It was not put on stone. It was not put on what we call today paper. The first calendar was put in the heavens. And when you learn it correctly, then it should be just like anything else in the word. It should become in your heart or in your lab, in your passion, right? No cap detected yet. So that's what the count does. So when persons get you messed up on all this stuff and some of the stuff that you've learned, and especially when you've been schooled in certain ways and certain manners of things, you don't even think about the calendar being based off of creation, right? The calendar is based off of creation. The sun was created to tell you where you are in the year and to give you seasons. The moon was created to tell you the Chedash, the period of the time of month. And this is why we go by Rosh Chedash. So when we get next year, at the beginning of the year, it will be Rosh Chedash Na'asan. And Rosh Chedash Na'asan, which is the beginning of the new year, the first month of the new year for us, when we get there, that's what we use to then say, okay, on the 14th day, which is the second Shabbat of the year, that's when we do Passover. And if you miss that Passover on in the second Chodesh, or the second month, right, based off of the position of the moon, then on the second Shabbat the next month, you'll be able to go ahead and have what we call a makeup Passover. They don't really call it makeup Passover, but that's in essence what it is. Where if you missed it, you can either do it, or you can intercede on behalf of someone else that was not able to make it. How you doing, Brother Aaron? This is what's going on. Okay, so this is how we should look at that. All right. So for anything else on that, unless it's something different that we've already talked about, I would suggest once again go back to Monday. We talked about the lie about the calendar in general, and we went over a whole lot of stuff. And then yesterday's live session, we went over. We spent probably about 45 minutes or so on it, even just yesterday. You said it's Shabbat the day because day and evening are separated. No, Shabbat is the eve, starts in the evening. For us, our day starts in the evening, from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Our day always starts. Right? We used to have 12-hour periods. 12 hours were considered to be 120 minutes. Now they're considered to be 60 minutes an hour. So that's why you have 24 hours. But let me go back. I know I missed some. I think Sister Joy might have had a question, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody, you might have to put it back in the chat. Or if I miss one over here as well, please forgive me. Right? But I'm going back. Okay, the lawsuit, but somebody had even asked something about that before the lawsuit. I'm pretty sure. Was it Sister Joy? Was somebody asked a question earlier, wasn't it? You said it was a great study in Daniel. I think Daniel one is still up. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to, Sister Sheba, we're gonna have to go through that whole thing at some point again anyway. Okay, so One Who Whispers had one. I think there was another question too. Oh, okay, it is. All right. Uh-oh. And now that I found it, it literally is doing something weird where I can't even read it. Okay, somebody's accenting it for me. Okay, thank you. How can we tell the difference between a test from the Most High and now it went away again? Sorry, I'm trying to. I swear I'm trying to read it. It's doing something weird. I don't know what it's doing. How can we tell the difference between a test from the Most High and an attack from the enemy? Okay, all right. And then number two, one who whispers asks, "What are your insights on the Abrahamic Accord in the theory of the one world religion?" Okay, so I'm gonna do a little research because the Abrahamic Accord, at least at the moment, escapes me. I feel like I've heard about it, but I don't know exactly what it is. So I'm gonna do. You might have to help me out while I'm reading about it. But so first things first, and then somebody asked about racism and a lawsuit, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, all right. So I'll try to go in that order. If there's more questions, I think I even missed another question in there as well. So thank you, Sister Shima, for pinning it. I'm having some weird thing going on all the platforms today. They really trying us today. That's okay. Praise Yah. Praise Yah for His excellent greatness and all the things that He's done and all the things that He continues to grow and provide. It means that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Alrighty. So first things first. How do I know if what Yah asks, um, if what I'm going through is a test by Yah, or if it's something else entirely, right? That was the first question, I believe. Uh, right, Sister Joy. I believe that was the first question, daughter. So, first things first. How do we know if it's a test by Yah? So this is what I'm going to be very, very careful in my answer with, because there are some times when the answer is for Yah to answer. Sometimes the answer is for Holy Spirit to get in there and give us the answer. And that might seem like a cop out to some, if I be honest, but it's the reality. Like sometimes it's Holy Spirit needs to talk to us about that, because I can give you, yeah, sure. Sometimes Holy Spirit downloads it to me, and I might say something, and you go, oh, got it, blah blah. Sometimes it's for you. So I'm going to be very careful with my answer in this, as we should always allow Ravach Hakodash, her to be our guide, right? For Holy Spirit to be our guide. All right, how you doing, Michael? Prayerfully, that's how you say it. Thanks for being part of the community. So we should always look for that, right? But how do I know if it's a test from Yah, or if it's punishment, or if the devil is, in it, or if I'm just doing something wrong? First things first, we always go to the Word, right? Um, oh, Boker Tov, right? Thank you. Toda. So, and first thing we do is we go to the Word, right? Have the Word hidden in your heart, right? Know Yah, know the Word, know Yah for yourself. Look at what's going on in your experience. Now, you have to, this also is what persons call today self accountability as well. Look at what you're going through and ask yourself, first of all, am I doing what the Most High says? Sweden in the house. Okay, how you doing? Not sure if it's or I'm about to say, I'm thinking Swiss. Sorry, Sweden in the house. How are you doing? I'm about to say the wrong thing language-wise. I don't recall how to give greetings. That's another one I got to add to the repertoire. I've been adding more and more from Europe as we as we seem to be growing over there. But welcome. Thank you for coming in. So, but how you doing? Is it Mommy CC? Thanks for being on. So first things first, always look for, am I actually where I'm supposed to be as far as the Most High wants? How you doing, Brother Richard? And if Sister Ucelis is watching, and if Baby Girl is watching as well, Adelea, right? So always see first, am I where I'm supposed to be? Is Yah telling me, have I been where I'm supposed to be? Because if I'm where I'm supposed to be, then even things that are happening could just simply be a tempting or a testing, a trial to see if I'm supposed to be there or not. And also too, am I in a place to where I am on the correct part of the journey? Because um, just because I'm in the right place on the journey doesn't mean this is the spot in the journey where everything's supposed to just be at my disposal, easy. And thank y'all for the love, right? So first things first, if I'm in the correct place that I'm supposed to be, If Yah tells me I'm supposed to be here, if I'm doing exactly what he says to the character or to the letter, because letter technically means character as well. How you doing, Brother Koba? So if I'm doing everything to the letter, to the character, right? How you doing, Albert? If that's what I'm doing, is everything to the letter, to the character, exactly the way it's supposed to be done, the way that Yah said. Not the way that Kofi said, not the way that I want, but the way that Yah said. And there's persons or even myself who has an issue with it. I have to go to a place of going, okay, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right, then I can't, and Yah wants me here, then the suffering of this present time. You talk, speak word, we can confess some things. Then the suffering, this is one of our, right, we have 5 affirmations. Some of us still do them daily, right? And number 3 is now we've combined what used to be 3 and 4 into one. Number 3 is the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall yet be revealed in us, and the creature or those created around us are waiting to see us go through it. Right? Why? Because they're waiting on the manifestation of the children of the Most High Yah, which means that I'm not going through this for nothing. And that also means that I have to, because suffering doesn't just mean pain, suffering also means choice. Women's suffrage movement, they want a choice, they want to vote, right? So suffering is also a choice. So I choose to go through what it is now so that I can get to the glory or the weight or the heaviness of the emperor. I might not be where everybody can see the glory that's going to be revealed in me, that those around me seeing this glory, seeing this light turn on, seeing all these things happen. I'm kind of working on something. I haven't quite put it on there. I meant to put it on there last couple of days, and to be honest, like this, I'm kind of going through some things, but I've been meaning to put it on there in the last couple of days on Patreon, and where I so I won't be able to explain this fully here, I guess, the way I'd like to, but have you ever thought about the fact that many persons, they say they want a blessing? Long suffering, wanting the fruit of the spirit. Come on, Sister Shima. I heard, one of the things that really messes with us is a lot of persons, they want y'all to give them the barak, the blessing, right? And what happens is we want the manifestation and we forget what is more. I want you to catch this. I hope this makes sense. We're going to explain this. This probably going to be SOC University thing, so you kind of getting a little extra something that I'm going to go way into detail. So way more detail in, but I'll give you, this is something that obviously we want to share to a certain degree. I just don't know if I have the time to do it correctly, express it correctly here. If you're talking about psychology, a lot of us go through depression because, and how you doing, Minister Morel? Missed you on there. So a lot of us go through what we call depression, and one of the reasons why we go through depression is because we believe that we're failures, and we believe that we have failed due to the fact mostly that we don't recognize there's more in the spirit than there is in the flesh. Does that make sense? It might not make sense wholly yet, but I'm gonna try my best to explain it. There's more in the spirit than there is in the flesh. And I have 2 cups here, right? 2 cups of water, right? Let's say that I want, this is just about, I'm trying not to spill. I got electronics and everything, so I gotta be careful. So I have 2 cups though, right? Let's say this is the physical and this is the spiritual. I want to be able to have something manifest into the physical, correct? My Father has unlimited resources over here in the spiritual, right? Makes sense so far, right? I wanted to come into the physical, and I wanted to come from the spirit to the physical. I wanted to manifest, even through our soul, if you will, right? But I wanted to manifest from the spirit into the physical, right? I want to go from spirit to physic. Okay? What a lot of us do is we think in our mind, in order to get a little bit of manifestation, I'm spilling some. We think in order to get a little bit of manifestation, this is what we believe. In order to get some manifestation, we have this belief system that says, okay, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, not realizing that my source, if I want something from it and I don't want it to run out, my source, my spirit has to have more, or the spirit has to have more in it than the physical, right? If not, right? If not, okay, I need more. I need more, but there's nothing left over here, right? You got to realize that what happens with us is we keep looking for the physical manifestation to say that it what. But when we pray for something, we should pray and also recognize that in order for it to become what God needs it to become, it's going to have to come from the Spirit, an overflow of the Spirit. There has to be more in the Spirit. So never look only at your physical circumstance to see where you are. Never look at, oh, okay, I've got 5,000, so I'm better off than if I have 500. Because there's somebody that has 500 who is way better off than somebody who's got 5,000. Never look at it as, oh, you know what? I've got two cars. I'm better off in my life than when I had one car. The reality is that you could have been way better in your mind, in your heart, with one car than you could have two. Matter of fact, now that you got two cars, you got two bills. You got two insurance claims, right? You might have two insurance claims. You might have two cars that you have to worry about whether they get stolen, right? So the things that happen in the spirit is eternal. This is why we have to go back to the beginning. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against our original man and who we are. And so what happens is we keep looking at things as far as, oh, how long have I been going through suffering, right? I've been going through something for like 5 years. When is it going to stop? How long have I been broke? I've been broke for 2 years, right? I was out on the street homeless for years. And I learned that no matter how somebody looked at me, I was still putting together sermons and reading and studying and going through things then. Somebody put me in prison for something I didn't do. I was going and reading and studying and preaching the word in there then, right? I couldn't get an opportunity to preach in front of others. I was outside preaching to trees. Seriously, getting my sermons together. You know, I was on social media for a long time, putting together live sessions. I had on one, when we were doing our platforms differently at one point, I could have a video reach 1 million views and then do a live session and 0 person show up for 3 hours. Right? Persons will ask me, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. What do you think I should do? I'll tell them first things first. Are you ready to have almost nobody show up for years and keep developing your craft? I've done 2 or 3 different versions of the podcast. Now it might be deemed to be somewhat successful, but for 2 or 3 years, nobody showed up. Matter of fact, you can ask those who knew me before. I used to go to different places in the nursing homes, and I would preach. And I started going to one place in particular once every other week or something like that. And maybe it became weekly, but I think it was like once a month, and it became once every other week, and then that kept going until 2020. And then we ended up moving, and so I haven't been back to that particular place. But I would just record what I was preaching there, and I would put it out there, and just about nobody was listening, right? But I was honing my craft, and I was figuring out how I was going to go and doing this and learning technology. I'm still not great with technology, but learning enough to be able to do this, right? So in the midst of that, sometimes you can feel like, man, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, blah, blah. And there's also preparation. There's also the tempting. See, the tempting of the gold is a process. If you're being tempted, it's a process. The tempting goes like this. The tempting goes to where you are supposed to take the gold, you're supposed to heat it up, and you're supposed to make it unrecognizable. You're making it unrecognizable. You're putting it in a form that it's not supposed to be in. And then in that form, it begins to be sifted through, right? And you take out all the gunk and all the nasty stuff, and then you shape it and allow for it to cool down in the shape, right, that you desire for it to be in. And then it's still unrecognizable because before, when you found it, right, with the dirt and stuff in it, when you dug it up, it was gold, but it was impure. Now that it's pure, it also has been not only purified, but to be purified, it had to be reshaped. So you have to recognize that there's going to be more, and the person who's shaping you has to have more power than you. He has to have more power than the dirt or the circumstance you're in, right? So we have to comprehend from a psychological place. We usually think that because I have less or because times are hard, we use it as an indicator, when the reality is that the one pouring into us has to always have more, which means that we look for the spirit, the more, not necessarily what's here. So for example, if one, just quick example, and then I'm going to try and answer the other half of that. So for example, if one has $1 million idea, you need to recognize that they actually have, I'm sorry, if one has $1 million coming in a year, it's not because they have $1 million idea. It's because they have a $10 million idea. Obviously, you can do with the math whatever you will. I'm just giving an example, right? But let's say, right, like if you have $1 million idea, you actually have a $10 million idea. That's why it's called vision. Is it the same for someone who suffers with anxiety? Yeah, well, anxiety even too, is suffering, anxiety. Once again, the word suffer is to go through, but also suffering has to do with the choice. Now, I'm not going to try to belittle depression because once again, I've told everybody I've been labeled as clinically depressed before in my life, and I know what it is to literally not be able to get out of bed and take a shower for weeks. I know what that is, so I'm not going to pretend that stuff is not real. But once somebody helped me a long time ago and said, hey, you have to choose how to think through those things. But I want you to hear this. If you have if you get to a place where you make 100,000 a year, guess what? You might have $1 million idea. It manifests in the flesh in 100,000. But that's why it's called vision. See, because persons are seeing part of the manifestation, not realizing that if they were to fall in line with the vision that you're supposed to write out and make plain, if they fell in line with the vision, they don't even realize that there's actually $1 million left or 900,000 left to go. What if Yah has given you $1 billion idea and you've only seen 50,000 of it? And you're like, oh, but I'm only seeing 50,000. If Yah gave it to you, the supply is bottomless. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that if Yah showed it to you in the spirit, how you doing, Sister Sterling? If He showed it to us in the spirit, how you doing, Days? If He showed it to you in the spirit, it means that whatever you're seeing in the physical is not even close. Right? If He showed us an opportunity to be a family in the community, if we would just do that, we don't even realize doing that now allows us to have access to more. But what happens is usually we'll give up. That's why we have to be obedient. We usually give up when it's actually a sign that we need to do more. We need to do more. We need to be more. We need to give more. We need to operate more in faith. Now, faith is the substance of things what? Hoped for. You can hope in negative things. Hope is not always positive. Just like consequences are not always negative, hope is not always positive. Some of us hope for. You know how I know that? Because first things first, when we wake up, a lot of us can't wait to scroll and hope that we see something negative that we can clown somebody for on social media. There's a lot of persons today that woke up and were hoping that they would see more crazy stuff about Epstein and Trump and Bubba and all that stuff. They hoped for it. we don't like to call it hope because it means then we got to be held accountable for what we hope. But a lot of persons hoped for that. Faith is the substance of things what? Hoped for. You don't develop faith. Your faith is the substance of what you hope for. So what is your hope for? And watch this. Who is your hope in? Salah. Right? What did you hope for? And who is your hope in? You said witness it today? Yeah, with the trolls. A lot of trolls get a whole lot. They can't wait. They hope. Oh man, I'm gonna find somebody so I can say anything. Matter of fact, anybody I find, I'm looking them up and down to see if I can find anything to Joan, make fun of, to play the dozens. They hope for that. Right? So our faith is the substance of things that are hoped for. Right? And right now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and what substantiates it is the evidence of things that are not yet seen. The evidence are things not that you will never see, but are the things that are not yet seen. What you hope in, that makes you not ashamed, leads you to your faith. What you have faith in will now allow you to start working as if what nobody has ever seen before, including you. You've never seen it manifest in the physical yet, but it doesn't mean that it cannot, because your hope is built on nothing less than Yahashva's blood and righteousness, right? That old hymn, right? So I hope, and then I hope, and I develop faith in what I hope in. Now I start to work in faith, and begin to see the evidence that has not been seen yet. Okay, well, those who have ears to hear will, right? I'm talking kingdom sense, not common sense. This is a verse, and it's different than a lot of other, physical stuff. Is not even necessarily esoteric. I'm talking about something that's reality, but many persons can't look through that prism. There's no problem. How you doing, Lady Jane? Thanks for being on. So, the things we hope for become what we have faith in. Faith, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would say, is being able to take a step in right and then take the next step into a dark place, not knowing where your foot will land, but having faith that you're still going where you're supposed to go. If I hope, right, I'll begin to build my faith in it. Many persons have their hope in capitalism. They put their faith in it. You can tell if what you put your faith in is real is if you work it and you don't get a manifestation. Right? So we gotta really exercise and realize and contemplate as far as that. Now the other side though, once again, the word is what we live by. Right? The word is what we live by. So if and forgive my head for being down, I'm just trying to make sure we upload this podcast real quick. So if I have hope, no, I'm sorry, so the word is what I live by. So now, if I've been disobedient, there are consequences for that. If I'm not doing things righteously, or I'm surrounding myself with persons who are not doing things righteously, there are consequences for that. And so that's another real thing. But this is why we have to use the word. The word is the judge, because the only one that can judge us is the Most High. The Most High is His word. So if I'm getting certain things that are happening over and over again, I've got to, first of all, and here's another thing, I kind of, it's kind of insinuated, or whatever being talked about. You might already know about it or not, but I was going to share it with you. So what we hoping is what, I know it's early, but it's still, I tried to leave this open so that it would stay. Okay, excuse me. So, what was I saying? I'm sorry, y'all. Forgive me. Well, don't forgive me. I'm talking to my wife. Where was I at? Somebody help me. I apologize. Hope. Oh, we're talking about on the flip side now. So if I'm going through some things, I need to know the word, right? I need to know the word for myself. I need to know what the word says. And I need to live and operate in the word, right? So if I'm going, and this is when I told you I'm going to have to be careful on this side of things. Hey, Brother Jermaine, how you doing? Much love to you. Oh, and by the way, if you like the other stuff that I was wearing the other day with SOC gear or whatever, that's Brother Jermaine. If you like, some of the jewelry, not all of it, but some of it that I'm actually, this is Sister Beverly who did the best body butter and stuff too. This is Brother Dwayne. Brother Dwayne, I don't know why I'm getting confused about that. Copper something. You have to put it in the chat for me so I can say company name. I apologize. But hey, how y'all doing? We try to support each other here. Works, faith and works. Where was I at? So yeah, so I got to be careful. I got to be real careful with this next part, because I am not the Most High. I will not pretend to be Him. I'm not going to opine. I'm going to give you contextual fact that reveals truth, right? So, and all these different things. Thank you. Is that actually a dashiki? It's a African pattern. No, that's dashiki is the material. This is, I forget what material this is, but it's 100% something. I try to make sure I keep the law on that as much as possible. 100%. I forget what it is, but anyways, saying you have to be careful who you're around. Yeah, thank you. Be careful, but also I have to be careful because I'm not the judge. If I'm getting negative consequences, now I have to once again even look at this the proper way. It's not negative consequences if it's what Yah is using to tempt me. Can I say it again? Hopefully that makes sense. It is not negative consequences if it is what Abba is using to tempt me. He will not let us fall into temptation, but he will tempt us. Temptation or temptation literally is a word that just means that you have now become what you fell for. Basically, you fell for the okie doke. If you have fallen into temptation, it means that you have fell for the okie doke, basically, right? You failed. But if you have been, but being tempted is not a bad thing. It does not say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into being tempted. It says he will not lead us into temptation, into temptation, which makes it a noun. To be tempted is the verb or the act. Temptation is the noun, the person, place, or thing. If I have fallen for the okie doke, then I have in fact fallen for, or even technically become, temptation. That's what that means. You said growing feels different when you realize you're winning battles you used to lose. That too, right? That too. And in your personal journey, I don't want to bring up all the stuff. I know some of the stuff you say publicly and things anyways, but I want to be, you know, I don't want to be the person that out stuff that you may not necessarily want out. But your journey is one that's extremely rare. We'll put it like that, which is why your question comes the way it does. Your journey and even your vision that you have is an extremely rare vision. Many persons, matter of fact, let's put it like this: 0.2% of the population to ever have lived will probably end up where you're headed, Sister Joy. And that's how powerful your journey. A lot of you have journeys like that. Matter of fact, really, your journey is a one of one. Your journey is a one of one. Right, but Sister Joy, you are literally embarking on a journey where I couldn't even begin to try to describe to somebody what you have to do, how you have to be trained, what the discipline is, the love of people and animals one must have. Like, you're doing something completely different than what anybody has ever done, and technically that's all of us, right? So there are going to be consequences or things that you go through. And also, here's where we have to put our faith in that spirit. Remember, I was talking about there's more things in the spirit. We have to think of the spirit being unlimited and us getting pieces of stuff in the flesh, but the spirit can always pour into us, right? Here are the things I want you to recognize. In the spirit, right, you're seeing somebody do something nobody's ever done in the flesh, at least nobody in your family, nobody who's a friend of yours, nobody you've ever dated, whatever the case might be, right? So this is part of the journey. Remember we talked about a couple weeks ago that being in leadership can be lonely, or you can feel alone in leadership. Because you're embarking on something that even if you tell others about, and even if we try to support you, it's difficult for us to support in ways that you might need the support because we ain't never seen it, right? But we trust the Yah in you enough to say, okay, well, whatever we can do, we help, or however, whatever message we can give, or whatever encouragement, right? Not just as our sister, but as the Most High's daughter, and doing what the Most High says. So this is why we say, like, we might not even know the power of it until all of a sudden we have a few animals on the land and stuff, and here comes Sister Joy and the stuff that she's been studying. All of a sudden, it helps to make sure that the animals are taken care of and things like that. Like, you're doing things that others can't even begin to relate to, but then all of a sudden it manifests. You see what I'm saying? Right? Then all of a sudden it manifests. And it's like the thing that you've been going through your whole life is a thing that really was there in eternity, but we just couldn't see it in time. You are going through the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to what? To the glory which shall yet be revealed in you. We will rejoice, and we'll rejoice when we see it with you, but it won't be the same rejoicing that you are. We'll only be able to rejoice with you. So it just kind of keep that in mind. I want to be careful on the devil, blah, blah, this and that or whatever, because the devil really doesn't have any more license to do anything than either what Yah allows or what you allow. And so I have to be careful with that part, because we give too much credit to the devil. Everything. The devil made me do it. The devil made me cheat. The devil put this in front of me. The devil is trying to kill. Look, the devil is always trying to do something, but until he gets permission, he ain't allowed to do anything. Even when he messed with Job, he can only mess with Job because Yah said, "Why ain't you messing with him?" And he only asked about Job because he knew how the story would end. Salah. So just keep that in mind. It's difficult, but keep that in mind. Oh wow. Okay, I got to come back to that. If Sister Jennifer Phillips is on, did I ever reach out? I don't think I ever reached out to you. I don't know why it just popped up on my phone. I was trying to get ready to put something on IG. It just popped up on my phone. So if not, I apologize. We'll make that happen. I apologize to you. All right. If or double check if you can, Sister Jennifer, if you're on, or if you see this later on the recording. All right. Um. So yeah, but so we have to be careful that just because we're going through something is not an indicator that we're not in Yah's will. Matter of fact, many a time you're going through. Here we go to Beatitudes yesterday in the last two verses, Matthew chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. When they say all manner of evil against you falsely for the sake or for the reputation of Yahashua and his authority and his name and the authority that he's given, rejoice when they say that and they be exceeding glad because they did the same thing to the prophets that came before you. Rejoice and be exceeding glad because they did the same thing to the prophets that came before you. The prophets followed the law. The prophets were asked to do things. Isaiah was asked to walk around and preach bucket naked. He was. Because children of Israel wouldn't pay attention to him. Yah said, go ahead and expose yourself. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Right? Yah will ask some things of us. Now, I'm not saying he's asking you to get out there buck naked. Right? That's between you and Yah, and I'm pretty sure he's not asking any of us to do that. I'm just giving an example. Isaiah was asked to go out and preach the word because nobody would pay attention to him. Humble yourself. Be embarrassed for the kingdom. Or don't be embarrassed if the king told you to do it. Hosea was told to go out there and marry a prostitute because he wanted to show Israel the relationship that Israel was having with him, where we were going out and we were whoring ourselves out. And so he said, Hosea, even though you're the head prophet, you're the pastor of Israel, if you will, he said, I want you to go ahead and marry a woman who's not going to be faithful to you. Sometimes Yah will ask you to do some things that are strange, and you might have to go through some things, but all things work together. And for some, that sounds like it's wild or whatever, but hey, I've seen a lot of persons, I've seen a lot of persons who will sit up there and have done a whole lot worse than that. And it wasn't for Yah either. It was for that Negro in the corner, that dude in the club, that girl who would give it up, whatever, right? To be able to fit in high school, whatever. We done did a lot of worse, crazy stuff ourselves, right? Stuff that we don't want to bring up no more, but the reality is, it's there. So, it's time for us to do what we're called to do and what Yahweh wants us to do, right? And that might, and it might be difficult. It's okay. All right. Next question up. And I'm sorry, Brother Alex, I didn't see whatever you're talking about. You said it was a typo or something? I didn't catch it. I didn't see it. Yeah, I didn't see it, Brother Alex. Last thing I see from you, it says facts. So you straight. We always straight, bro. How you doing, King Don? Thanks for being part of the community. Let's see. Next question was, about the Abrahamic Accord, which is not necessarily ringing the bell. I have it pulled up, so we're gonna read together. But the Abrahamic Accord, and what was the next part? As far as, I guess, the New World Order type thing. And what are my thoughts on it? I'm gonna once again try not to opine. I'm gonna try to just give you, the truth about it. But just to make this clear before we even start, New World Order is not just a wrestling faction. It is a real thing. There are tons of paperwork to tell us and teach us and show us what was going on. Oh, much love to you, daughter. And all is well, and you can reach out. But keep on being strong. Proud of you. Keep on pushing. But yeah, but New World Order is in fact a real thing that has happened. There are persons that have come together. There is documentation of it. You'll see places of worship not only in Congress building or the Senate building, but also you'll see it represented in Rome. You'll see it represented at the Vatican. You'll see it represented in places in Egypt. You'll see it represented in all types of places. You'll see it in Japan. You'll see. So this is something that's actually real. It's not something that's fake. I just want to put that out there because persons try to make this stuff fake news, and then we think of it fake for so long that we actually don't worry about it. You know, so it's important to realize this is not fake news, right? It's important that we realize that like there's persons, we a lot of us know that from Trump as if he's the first person to say fake news, but a lot of us know that there are battles that we're having. There are things that we're going through. There are places that are not supposed to be safe for us specifically, and we need to be aware, and we need to be honest, and we need to make sure that we're constantly and consistently, ready for what Jehovah has called us to be, right? So I start there. The New World Order part, that actually won't be a difficult. The Abrahamic Accord, you guys might have to help kind of usher me through. So I'm just going off of stuff that literally the first thing that I'm reading. I feel like I've gone through and read some of this stuff before, but it has been years, if I just be honest with you, okay? I know what the actual Abrahamic covenant is, but the Abrahamic Accord is not the one and the same, right? So we're going to read through and just kind of see what's going on here. I'm literally looking at something that the first thing that pops up, matter of fact, it's AI, which means it's a jumble of a whole bunch of thoughts together, right? So I admit that to you right from the jump. So you guys might have to, I'm gonna look at it. If I'm saying some stuff that seems to be off, for those of you that know more about it, feel free to be like, Pastor Kofi, look here, or maybe you can type a place that I should go to their website or something like that, and I'll try to see what I can do. But I'm kind of going on the fly, just making it clear. Okay, so I'm gonna try my best not to opine, making this clear. You might have to take some of what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I fully admit that from the jump. All right. Okay. All right. Love you all, and I love you too much to lie to you. So I'm just letting you know. Sometimes the answer is I don't know, or I'm trying to find out on the spot. Right now, I'm trying to find out on the spot. All right. So here we go. The Abrahamic Accords are a series of normalization agreements. So right from the jump, if what this is saying is true, if it's a series of normalization agreements, series tells me first of all this has been going on for a while, and it's telling me this is not a one-off incident, and it says it's a series of normalization agreements. So agreements, covenants, or contracts, right? Also, it tells me that it's normalization, something to be normalized. So if I put just a little bit I've read together already, right? I discovered maybe this will be an insight on how we do some study and how Pastor Kofi be looking at stuff. Because somebody you want to see how my mind works because I be stuck on certain words. So I apologize, but well, I don't apologize. You asked the question, you know how it works with my head. Let's go ahead and get here. So the Abraham Accords, the Abraham here calls it not Abrahamic Accords. Here it calls it the Abraham Accords are a series, which means it's over and over again of normalization, right? Meaning that the goal is to get this to a place, to get the persons on board with this, and to make things happen that are what? That are normal. It becomes normalized to you, right? Like when it shouldn't be normal that we watch a movie and that we're waiting to cheer on somebody's demise or death at the end of it. But because we have watched so many movies like that, right? It has become normal. Make sense? Right? Like that's normalization. If you were not raised around a place where we saw death or even um, death at least honored or death um, acted out so much, we wouldn't normalize persons dying in movies. We wouldn't normalize, oh, okay, if somebody's bad in the movie, they should have their life taken. We wouldn't normalize, hey, I can't wait to watch Saving Private Ryan again. Matter of fact, it doesn't even make sense to normalize it because when they put that movie out, they had to put out a whole thing to veterans saying, hey, please be careful if you come see this movie. Why? Because if you come see this movie, things that persons have are normalized to some, you have been in the actual experience and you know how non-normal, if you will, abnormal, there we go, how abnormal this actually is. How abusive to the normality this is, right? This is abnormal. This doesn't make sense, right? To be in a situation where you're seeing D-Day. And that's where the movie starts. But a lot of persons like to see things like that. It's abnormal to say, I'm going to go watch a movie called It, right? To where a clown is a spirit or whatever it is. I haven't seen it. I've heard about it. I don't even, I can't really do horror movies. The only horror movie I actually subjected myself to on purpose, which because when I was young I thought it was the truth, but it's not really. But the movie that Johnny Depp did, From Hell, with the two brothers that are twin brothers, um, based off of Jack the Ripper. I used to have a weird fascination growing up with Jack the Ripper and trying to figure out if I could be the one that could solve the case. Posthumously of not only the victims but of Jack the Ripper himself, right? But basically, like, persons have become, this has become normalized. In the same fashion, we have to realize that this is normalization agreement. So whatever agreements are being made, a series of agreements being made over and over again, it's normalizing something. What is it normalizing? It says primarily brokered by the U.S. in 2020. Primarily means what? Primary, prime, first. Firstly, mainly by the U.S. So whatever's going on with these Abrahamic Accords, we know that they're not coming from everybody else. At least not everybody else is at the head of it. The head, or at least the person getting the credit for it, is the corporation of the United States, right? And it says that established diplomatic relations between Israel and several Arab nations, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. So that much that I just found, if I just be honest with you, if you already know what time it is with that stuff, I kind of sort of know some of this already, just off of that, because that right there, forgive me for saying it this way, but that's a bunch of bull hockey, a bunch of malarkey, a bunch of hoo-ha. Okay, it's that's actually something that never really happened the way it was supposed to, and there's really no peace to this day, right? It's kind of like when, for example, what's his name? Is it Henry Kissinger? If you were to look up Henry Kissinger and the stuff that he did, so I don't. How many of you are familiar? I'm gonna throw out something to you guys, um, and see, just to see what you guys. Not trying to come at you. I just not trying to say I know all that. I literally want to see where everybody's at on this. I'm not that knowledgeable about it, but I have enough knowledge about this part where at least we can have conversation about it. Um, has everybody here knows about the Nobel Peace Prize, right? I'm not saying that. I promise you, I'm not trying to belittle anybody's knowledge. I legit am asking the question for a reason, right? Everybody here knows about the Nobel Peace Prize? Yes? Okay. Now let me ask this. Do you know who who Nobel is, and do you know why he created the Nobel Peace Prize? We're just gonna show something real quick. Once again, even in the midst of Q&A session, to reverse the curse, we have to revisit the lie. Is everybody aware of why the Nobel Peace Prize was made? By him. Because we just say Nobel Peace Prize. A lot of persons don't know what it's used for, or what especially it's become, right? It's become like an Emmy of sorts. It's become an Oscar of sorts. And if you know about an Oscar especially, you should know about the spiritual ramifications of that, right? Okay, so no, so I just wanted to make sure. So if you're not aware of the Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel was somebody that lived, I don't recall if it was at the end of the 19th century or towards the beginning of the 20th century. In other words, the late 1800s or early 1900s. I'm not sure when exactly, but uh, Nobel is not the one who created the atomic bomb. That's, I forget what his name is. That's somebody different. But Nobel, but what happens with the guy Nobel? He actually, he either had a twin brother or a brother that was very close, similar in age. Um, he was very rich and made his money off of dynamite. right? Basically, he made his money off of having a bunch of dynamite and things like that. That ilk. There was an accident at a factory, and his brother passes away, right? But Nobel actually survives. Okay. Well, I mean, so his brother passed away, but he still survives. But because they were so close in age and stuff, and because the money was kind of shared, and because everybody kind of, if you saw one, you saw the other type deal, it was assumed that he was the one who died. And they actually somebody wrote basically like an obituary in the paper about him, right? Somebody else, not him, not his family, but somebody else wrote an obituary about him in the paper. So he wakes up, obviously distraught, finding out that his brother has passed, all this stuff, saddened. And then on top of that, wakes up and sees his own obituary, which many of us, you know, would would uh would have issues and stuff like that with it. But he, in fact, wakes up and sees his own obituary and reads it and reads the things that persons have to say about his life. Wow, if we could have somebody read our own obituary, if we had to put our own obituary together, what would it say? That's a whole sermon within itself, right? But he has to read his own obituary, Nobel does. And so Nobel reads his own obituary and sees all the stuff going on in there and says, wow, I don't want to be remembered this way. I don't want people person to recall me and just be like, because they're talking about him. He had dynamite and he's blown up stuff, and persons have used his explosions to be able to do this and that around the world, and and he's going to be somebody who's going to bring death. He's an angel of death. All these different things they use to describe him, and he's reading it. He's like, oh my greatness, I don't like this at all. So he creates to make sure that his name doesn't go down like that. He creates the Nobel Peace Prize so that anybody who now thinks about his name will think about peace. Somebody probably already know where we're headed now because of that, right? You said Marcus Garvey was done in the same manner. Mm. Yeah. So this is what happens with Nobel. So Nobel actually read his own obituary because persons thought he died and not his brother, and he didn't like what he saw and he wanted to change his name. He didn't change what he was doing. He just wanted to make sure that persons always remembered him differently. So now you'll see persons such as Henry Kissinger. Basically, anybody who gets a Nobel Peace Prize, a lot of them jokers don't deserve it and they do wild stuff, right? You'll see Henry Kissinger come. Look at the stuff that he did without consent from the U.S. government, without consent from Congress, starting wars, defeating persons. He dropped more bombs, I believe, in Vietnam that were dropped on all places in World War II combined. It could be World War One and World War II, but let's just be safe. In World War II, if you combine all the bombs that were dropped all over the place, he dropped more bombs in Vietnam, on Vietnam, than any other place. He then does what he did. I believe it's in Argentina. It's either Argentina or Chile. But he then basically like messes their stuff up too. Responsible for so much stuff that happens around the world. And guess what you do to make sure you cover it up and have persons think differently? You give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Right? You give him the Nobel Peace Prize. This is what you do. Right? So if you're somebody who destroyed, but matter of fact, one of the I can't recall which one. I feel like we're dealing with the 1950s, 1960s. I could be off a little bit, but if you go back, there was a person where there was issues going on with stuff in Israel, right? In the so-called, it could be even 70s. I'm having a moment here, so forgive me, but there was a one of the prime ministers, I believe, of Israel ends up, America's asking, hey, can you guys have peace with Egypt? Probably closer, so that was 60s, right? 1960s, 7-day war or 5-day war, 4-day war, whatever that is happens, and they basically Egypt won't, represent their or recognize their sovereignty because Egypt said that when you left you were black and now that you come back you're white. In other words, you can't be the Israelites, so we won't recognize your sovereignty as Israel, right? So Egypt and Israel having beef back and forth, and Israel is bullying and doing stuff to persons that will eventually also become Palestinians and stuff like that. Well, already were doing stuff to the Palestinians, but they're doing crazy stuff to the starts with a K. I can't remember who the group is, but doing stuff to them and the Egyptians back then. And so finally, the Israeli prime minister agrees to go ahead and have a peace, but he tells them, "I'm still going to beat up certain persons, and I'm still going to, you know, I'm still going to beat up certain persons, and we're still going to not feed. We're still going to ask that certain places not get fed, and that they still starve to death." And America okays it, gives them a Nobel Peace Prize. Why do you give them that? Because if they get the Nobel Peace Prize, then nobody's supposed to look any further. So I say all that. We could keep on going through examples, but I say all that and I encourage you to do some more research and study on that. You'd be surprised how many persons get Nobel Peace prizes for stuff, and it's just cover up, right? It was their way and still is their way of basically, like, heading things off in the news, being able to control the news. If we gave them a Nobel Peace Prize, they can't be bad, right? And I get it, because somebody might say, well, MLK. You might want to realize why they gave them the Nobel Peace Prize, and then why they still off them in the first place. Off them right after that, right? There's a lot of stuff. I'm leaving breadcrumbs. Sometimes you got to be careful. Believe it or not, sometimes you got to be careful about what you say. But anyways, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get clapper room with this, and then we're gonna get started. What is today's date? The 21st. I keep trying to say yesterday I was trying to say it was the 21st. Now I'm trying to say it's the 20th. My bad, y'all. Q&A session. November 21st, 2025. Okay. All right. We got everybody on all the platforms now. Okay. So, yeah, so back to the Abraham Accord. So I put that there to give you a background as far as when a person tell you all this stuff is going on and things like that, and the U.S. calls peace and all these different things or whatever. It's not to be trusted, right? Normalization of this stuff has been so normalized that we give out awards for peace to persons who cause anything but. Okay, so these accords, led by the U.S., normalizing agreements, right? A series of normalization agreements. These accords fostered economic, security, and cultural cooperation, shifting the paradigm of the Arab-Israeli conflict by focusing on shared interests like countering Iran, rather than making progress on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a prerequisite for normalization, right? All of that's kind of mumbo jumbo. All of that's kind of nonsense. But if we be honest, it's kind of giving you a little bit of a bar, where it's basically saying, like, you guys were taking credit for all this stuff, but you wouldn't make sure that you were telling Israelis to stop offing Palestinians, right? So that's kind of where that's kind of what you can get if I can make that real quick. While proponents highlight benefits like increased trade and tourism. So yeah, everybody started going to what's the place everybody goes over there where the Saudi princes are? I've had family members go over there and stuff. I'm probably not gonna go because of all the stuff that's happening and what they probably do to our women and stuff, and probably do to me if I came over there, because they be looking at what you speak. Dubai, thank you. Yeah, everybody started going to Dubai even more and blah, blah, and all this stuff and everything. This is all due to everything supposed to be okay, right? But critics point to the lack of progress on Palestinian statehood as a major limitation. In other words, we're still not paying attention to what's going on in Palestine. All right. And you can go to Dubai, by the way. I'm just saying, be careful. Those of you who've been there or have thought about going there, you know what I'm talking about. All right. Establishment of ties. The agreement formally normalized. Once again, this is a series of things that we're doing to normalize the way that we look at what they're going through, right? The agreement formally normalized relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain on September 15, 2020, with Morocco and Sudan following soon after, which, by the way, shows you what goes on with our brothers and sisters in Morocco, right? They're going through a lot of stuff too. Nobody talks about that. A lot of persons forget. Not too long ago, matter of fact, around this same time, there were a lot of our brothers and sisters trying to escape persecution in Morocco, trying to go into Spain, and the Spanish were offing our people as we were trying to cross, go across those lands. Okay, all right. So, um, so the Accord is based on for principles of mutual understanding, coexistence, respect for human dignity, and interfaith dialogue, aiming to end radicalization and create more prosperous and peaceful region. Do you believe that everybody in the area in that region of the world? Do you think everybody's getting along? Do you think that radicalization has stopped? Do you believe that if you were to go over to Spain right now, they wouldn't be that racist against you? Do you believe that if you went over to Qatar, which was mentioned in the chat, great mention by the way, that they're going to treat women with respect? Do you believe that if you went around a Saudi prince, that the Saudi prince would allow a woman to open her mouth and actually? Of course not. But we have to keep up. Matter of fact, one of the biggest things that they use is one of the last things that kind of just like I was trying to hang in there with my little childhood stuff. Once every few months, I'd come on and I'd watch this company, and then when they started really sleeping in bed with the Saudi with that Saudi money, I was like, I had to leave them alone. WWE or WWF or WWF, depending on when you started paying attention. Which encapsulated WCW, and I know there were territories and stuff. I'm just saying, most of us, probably know more about that than anything else. WWE, the former WWF under Vince McMahon, who really was not only letting people get off, but was R-wording women so much that finally it caught up with them, right? you know, um, Persons were trying their best to figure out how to hang in there long enough with it, but finally, when that Saudi money came, a lot of persons were like, "No, man, we can't even act like that, right? Like we can't even pretend that this is okay, right?" But a lot of persons don't realize like that was a big thing that happened during this whole thing to normalize the stuff and get people to stop forgetting about it. Now, in the beginning, it was a thing where everybody was against it. Everybody hated if you were a WWE fan or whatever, you hated seeing them go over to Saudi Arabia. Matter of fact, when the women were wrestling, I don't know if they still do or not. The women had to be, and by the way, it's their culture, but that the women had to be fully clothed. The women be wearing next to nothing. So I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing they asked for, but the women, had to be fully clothed, like sweatpants, all that stuff couldn't be too tight. And it was a big deal because they at least allowed women to wrestle. But there was a lot of other things going on where they were, women were in slavery, people were in slavery, racism was still there. They were killing people in the streets, all this stuff. But hey, that Saudi money was something sweet, so they kept going over there. And so for a lot of persons, they kind of like I was. Even such as myself, who tried to tune in from time to time, or at least listen to podcasts, talk about what's going on, I had to give it up because I was like, dang, okay, now we at a place like what have I been doing? Like I literally have allowed this thing to be in me so much that I knew all this stuff has been going on for decades, and I'm still watching. I knew what Vince McMahon was doing for decades. I saw him saying the N word on television about my people for decades, and we still let it roll. And finally, it was like, okay, this is blatant. I didn't really think about it being part of these accords, but that's part of what they're talking about. So and if you pay attention, they've been using the same money and the same system and everything. They've been doing all this stuff. They've been having comedians get made fun of, like Bill Bill Burr, and a lot of persons in the Rogan sphere, if you know what that is, and a lot of persons who said they would never do this and blah blah, and they had all this. All this stuff, and they would always talk bad about everybody, how better they were than everybody else. They've been going over there. Phil Mickelson and a whole bunch of persons who play golf, they started going over there because they have more money than they do in the PGA. They're trying to get basketball players to start a league over there. They're really into stuff. You're seeing now the fights that you saw, the fight that you saw recently with Terrence Crawford, right, when he was whooping feet. Right, Terrence Crawford, not only with when he beat the brother from Texas, but also recently when he beat I don't know if the brother from Texas was that, but when he beat what's his face? I'm sorry, um, the Mexicano brother, right? Isn't he Mexican? The brother that he just beat, that was supposed to be one of the greats, and he beat him recently. When he beat him, that was under that Saudi money, under that Prince money, under that UAE stuff, under all that. That was, you'll see that even though it was in the Americas, all the persons that were running it were in the turbans and all that stuff, right? So, um, so this stuff is taking more of a. I never really thought about it. All this stuff coming together. I'm glad you got Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez. Why can I never do the R in the middle of a word? I can do it in the beginning. I can't do it in the middle. Sorry about that. But yeah. So Canelo, when he lost, that was under that same thing. It's been so normalized, we don't even think about it. Right? It's been so normalized, we don't even think about it like that. You said, as the late Dick Cheney said, the American way of life is not negotiable. Yeah, but Dick Cheney was shooting people in the face. You don't think Dick Cheney wanted that money either? Dick Cheney was vice president shooting persons in the face and then talking about, oh, I thought it was a duck. Dick Cheney ain't the best person to listen to. Or that, I'm just saying. I mean, Dick Cheney will hit you with buckshot in your face. Buck! And then talk about some, oh yeah, I thought you was a duck. He might not be the best person to use to talk about this. Just being honest, that might not be the one you want to use. But yeah, so anyways, going to cooperation. The accords have led to increased cooperation in areas like tourism, trade, security. The UAE and Israel have deepened their economic and defense ties, and direct flights have been established. So because of all this stuff and because of all the money that's going through, it's basically saying they use this money to make sure that Israel and UAE and others who are in these accords and stuff, that everybody's getting stronger in their defense. Motivation. A shared concern over Iran's influence was a significant driver for these agreements, with several nations seeing closer ties with Israel as a way to counter the perceived threat. Controversy and criticism. The accords have been criticized for bypassing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We talked about that, with some arguing they have stalled progress on a two-state solution and further complicated the Palestinian issue. Haven't further complicated it. It's been the same thing since 1940 whatever, right? 1948. All right. Implications for Palestine. The lack of progress on the Palestinian issue remains a major point of contention. Saudi Arabia has linked future normalization to steps toward a two-state solution, highlighting that the accords have not been able to move that needle on this front. So even the Saudis, the princes, the royalty, who we've been talking about through this, even they admit, yeah, this hasn't really gotten anything done. And all they've done is said, we will work toward that. But they've been saying we will work towards this for a while, even before 2020, but especially since 2020. 2020 is now 5 years. So for 5 years, everybody's been getting rich, fat, happy. Your defenses are fine. But everybody who's still been persecuted, who you said that this was supposed to make sure that everybody was taken care of, while the rich get richer, the poor get killed. So in a nutshell, right? That's the Abraham Accords, or I'm not sure if it's called Abrahamic Accords. Here it's called the Abraham Accords, which I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't know about the name, but I do know enough to at least reasonably talk about it. Okay. So that being said, how does it? I think the second part of the question, if I'm not mistaken, was how do we look at that concerning eschatology or the last days? Or no. Okay. You were talking about it with New World Order, stuff like that. Okay. So as I said before, New World Order is something that's real. Once again, interestingly enough, is not a WWE faction only. They named it the New World Order even back in, what was that, 95, whatever that was, 1995, I think. They named it that because it was known by many that there was a belief that there was a New World Order. Now, New World Order is also where you get a lot of stuff like New Age belief system. So this is why I was thinking eschatology in my mind, or the study of the last days, or the study of the times that will last. How you doing, WIT Estate? The reason why I think about it in that is because if you're honest, these are things that are supposed to happen where the world is going towards an antichrist spirit, right? And us to be headed up. Remember, we just talked about this the last couple of days, even in our Q&A, and even talked about this we talked about this the last couple of days, today and yesterday. We've been talking about this where Daniel chapter 2, there's one statue, but there are many parts of the statue, right? How you doing, Queen Bee? There's one statue. There's one statue. There's one antichrist spirit, so to speak. There's one statue. Remember, even if you do, whether you believe this to be figurative, you believe this to be mythos, you believe this to be real, you believe this to be as real as I believe it to be, you must recognize that Revelation 12 and Revelation 13 give you the game. Yehoshua in Revelation 12 comes out of Israel, is born. Israel separates themselves. It seems like Yehoshua is gone, but he's resurrected on his way back up to heaven. The devil ends up trying to fight Michael, or Michael comes down with others. They beat the brakes off of the fallen angels and the devil. They fall down into the earth. They're not in hell. And this is one of the things when persons say that saying, one of the greatest tricks of the enemy, or one of the greatest tricks of the devil, is that he made you think he doesn't exist. Actually, one of the greatest tricks of the devil is to make you think that he's in hell. Uh-oh. I'm going to say that again. New World Order piece. Persons look at this crazy because the saying is not really, I like the saying, but the saying doesn't go deep enough. The saying we like to say is one of the tricks of the devil, the greatest trick of the devil is to make you think that he never existed. The reality is the greatest trick of the devil is to make you and I think that he's in hell. I'm going to say it one more again for the people in the back. The greatest trick of the devil is not that he makes you think he doesn't exist. The greatest trick of the devil is to make you think he's in hell. What you mean? The greatest trick of the devil is to make you not realize that in your own Bible, read it in Revelation, he's not in hell until Revelation 20. But we're talking about Revelation 12 and 13. He's not been kicked out of heaven into hell. He has been not allowed to come back into heaven, and he's been kicked out onto the earth. Revelation 20 is when he ends up in hell. I'm talking about timeline. We know eternity is different than timeline. In the timeline, and we're on the timeline where we haven't gotten to where, the gates of hell have been opened up. So in the timeline, nobody's in hell. Persons are asleep. Even if they died, they're asleep, right? Well, actually, yeah, they're asleep. We'll just say it like that. They're asleep. So if they're asleep, the devil is not in hell. He's the first one. That's why, right? What is it? What is that scripture, Sister Shima? 1 Peter. I always be messing up which one that is. Is that 1 Peter chapter 3 or 1 Peter chapter 5? I think it's 1 Peter 5:8. Matter of fact, let's go there because I think we need to read 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7 right before it. I believe that's 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8, but let's read right before it. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's go. Oh, see, this New World Order wants to be against all this stuff. Let's hit this real quick. Let's go different. Let's go into here. Let's go into here. Now I don't be keeping up with stuff enough. Well, I guess SDA is just 7-day Adventist, right? Why do I sound 7-day Adventist? I don't know. I don't worry about sounding 7-day Adventist. I want to sound like I'm in the Word. But let's go back to 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 1. Let us do that. You ready? See, persons coming here so split up and everything and looking for different sects, SECTS, even if stuff that we missed the word. But watch this. If this is what they say, I don't know if this is what they say. I know certain things they do. I don't think I've ever been to an SDA event in my life. I've been invited. I don't think I've ever gone. Right? But anyways, if that's your way of saying hello, hey, how you doing? What's up, Donnie? All right. So watch this. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 1. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 is our landing point. I'm pretty sure. That's right. Okay. So let's go back. We always have to have context. We don't like context, but let's do something with this. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 1. The elders which are among you, I exhort, who am also an elder, and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. To the elders, Peter says, here, the Apostle Peter, right? Peter meaning small stone. He's solid. When he does wrong, he's Simon, he's leafy. When he does righteous, he's Peter. He's strong, small stone, right? He says, I am talking to the elders right now. He said, this ain't even for everybody. No problem. I know you. I know you doing your thing. He says, this ain't. Oh, that's right. Be safe, right? You picking up the babies? Is that today or tomorrow? Be safe. Need to put out a prayer for you real quick. My fault. I forgot what day it was. Be safe. Y'all be safe, right? And enjoy. It's always joyous to have the family come back together, right? But he says here, I'm talking to the elders, right? This ain't to everybody. This is to the elders. He says, I'm speaking to the elders real quick, which are among you, and I exhort. What's exhortation mean? What does it mean to exhort again? You pick them up tomorrow? Okay. Well, I prayed in advance then. Right? What does it mean to exalt? I'm sorry, exhort? It means to admonish. Right? It means to encourage, even to strengthen, even to console. It also can mean I'm teaching you by consoling you. Through my consolation, I teach. So he says, I'm giving you something as an elder myself. I want to go ahead and give you something in advance for you being elders. Us being in this position of preaching and teaching and leading, I give you this. I also have witnessed, I've gone even, he's saying, and I've also go deeper than you because I saw the suffering that Christ went through. Interesting, we can see Peter showing up a little bit in this because Peter be brushing his shoulders off, forgetting that he also was the one that said, I won't deny you, and ran away. Right? But he did cut a ear off. Right? But anyways, he says, I've seen the sufferings of Christ. Right? And also a partaker of the glory which shall be revealed. Verse 2, he said, feed the flock of Elohim. Now, interesting enough, if you catch this, I believe this is in John chapter 21, where Christ keeps asking Peter. He keeps saying, Peter, do you love me more than these? Love me more than the fish? Peter says, yeah, you know I love you. He says, okay, feed my sheep, as in feed the mature one, feed the adults. Then he says, Peter, do you love me more than these? Peter says, come on. I don't know why you're asking me this again. You know I love you. He says, okay, then feed my lambs. Then he says, Peter, do you know love me more? And Peter finally gets upset, frustrated, like, yeah, you know I love you. Why are you asking me? Right? And he says, okay, well, this time make sure that you feed everybody. Right? I need you to feed everybody who's a sheep. And you'll see Peter go through the different things that it does for him to start actually getting this, whether they be born Israel or not. So here he is speaking in an epistle, in a letter, and he says, what? Feed the flock. He said, this is what I went through, and I had to learn. And Christ had to tell me. And Christ, when he showed that he forgave me, he made it a point to say, if you really want true forgiveness, then just feed my flock. So he says to those who lead, feed the flock of Elohim, which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly. Somebody shouldn't have to force you, but it should be of your own free will. Not for filthy lucre, not for all the stuff that comes with it, but of a ready mind. Oh, I like that. We don't talk about a ready mind. We like to talk about all types of mind. A ready mind. Verse 3, neither as being lords over Elohim's heritage. Don't trip over being a lord over what you're supposed to inherit just because you're his son anyways. But being in samples or examples, in samples, things that persons can sample of the flock or to the flock. The flock, in essence, therefore, should be eating off you and not you doing what they were doing in Ezekiel 34 and you eating off them. Verse 4, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 4, and when the chief shepherd shall appear, that's Christ, our Messiah, ye shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. He's encouraging and admonishing, he's exhorting, he's teaching elders such as himself to make sure that we recognize that our reward is not coming from man. So don't trip off of leading man, hoping that man will reward you. Lead man knowing that Yah will reward you. Verse 5, likewise, in the same thing that we just talked about, likewise, in the same manner, ye younger. See, this is what we have to, right? The devil is a roaring lion seeking whom may devour. He's going to say, be sober. This is what causes us to be drunk, if you didn't catch the context yet. Did you catch it? In the context that we're speaking about, what causes us to go through the issues that we're going through and go through the vicissitudes of life in extra. And somebody even asked earlier, how do I know if this is Yah's will or if it's just whatever? Okay, we're getting some of the game here from Peter. Peter is saying, ye younger, submit yourselves to who? Unto the elder, right? And he says to the elders, make sure that you are in sample to the younger. In other words, be sober, and this will help you to stay sober. Don't do this for money because money will make you drunk. Don't do this for views because views will make you drunk. Uh-oh. Don't do this so that somebody will lay down with you because that will make you drunk. Don't join this because you worried about everybody on earth saying, that boy preached, that boy good, that boy good, right? Don't do it because of that. It'll get you drunk. It'll get you off track, right? Likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Not just any elder, but what elder? The elder that was just talked about, that follows the law and is obedient and makes sure that they're doing this for the righteous reasons. Well, now the younger. Have you ever noticed that younger folk don't follow older folk in the way? And we get so mad and upset and frustrated with them. And the reality is they don't follow because they see the foolishness. There's a brother right now that we helping out. And he's not really SOC, but is SOC adjacent. And we check in on him and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff, I'm not going to put his business out. But when I'm talking to this brother, he starts saying all these things that he was raised in. And it became apparent that his situation he was in, he really didn't have to go first. We kept talking, but I could tell from the first 2-3 sentences, this is not even a him thing. He was raised in such a manner, right? He was raised in such a manner that he's not ever going to be able to become what Yah says unless he learns how to break out of it and he has somebody who's in sample. So I check in with him from time to time. He's doing better and stuff, praise Yah. But I'm really just there, not even as pastor. I'm there as like, hey, you've never had father figure, you never had big brother. Let me just show you some things, tell you some things that man to man somebody's supposed to be telling us. Because if not, you're going to end up in some foolishness again, right? This is helping us to have and develop the sober mind and keep a sober mind. Likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you, everybody, be subject one to another. This sounds once again like John chapter 21. Take care of the sheep. Feed the sheep, feed the lambs, feed everybody. You see, Peter is just simply repeating what Christ said. That's a great example or ensample to us. How you doing, Alan? Right? So likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another. This sounds like Paul preaching in Ephesians 5:21 before he starts talking about husbands, wives, and then talks about children, obey your parents. Right? Be subject one to another, and be clothed with meekness or humility. For Elohim resisteth the proud, and giveth himself. You could have it giveth grace, but that word grace, right? Giveth himself to the humble. So 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6, humble yourselves, right? In the kaddish, in the will, in Yah's will and who he is, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty Elohim, or the mighty Elohim, the mighty hand of Yah, that he may exalt you in what? Not today, maybe, not in 2 days, maybe, but in due time, when it is due. That's due time. When it is due, your payment is due on a certain date. You can pay it early if you want, but it's due at a certain time. Yah will give it to you in due time, in the season. Verse 7, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Whenever you're going through, this is going to help you to humble yourself, to keep this, to have this mind, right? Matter of fact, it's not the mind that we're used to hearing about. This is actually called the ready mind. It's going to help your mind to stay ready, and your mind can only be ready if it is what? 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, be sober. This is what helps you to stay sober. You're only focusing on the physical when it says that word sober, but be sober spiritually. Have a ready mind. Elders, you will be able to have a sober mind if when you do something, you know that you are feeding those that come behind you, right? Be ready. Have a ready mind. Have a sober mind to the younger. Right. Likewise, for those of you who are younger, look up to those who have a ready mind, a sober mind. Right. Let us submit ourselves one to another. Husbands, have a ready mind. When you do something, know it affects your wife. Wives, have a ready mind. When you do something, realize it can propel or take away from the mission of your husband. That's why you should know Proverbs chapter 20. Sorry. You should know Proverbs chapter 18, verses 21 and 22. See, verse 22 by itself just says what? It says, he who finds a wife finds a tabah or a righteous thing and obtaineth favor from Adam. But you put verse 21 with it, and it says, those who know how, I'm sorry, uh, death and life is in the power of the tongue, and those that achava or act upon it that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So if you find a wife, you will find somebody who knows how to speak life into you and speak death into you, and those that give proper action towards her and towards somebody who gives proper actions towards her words finds somebody who is worthy of making sure that you have a tabah thing called marriage with. Right? 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, be sober. And in this ready mind, remain vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, your true adversary, that true statue that we're going through, is the devil. And he's as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Right? Ross says 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 9, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the Elohim of Kadesh, the Elohim who reveals himself, the Elohim of all grace, who hath called us into his eternal glory by Yechashva Mashiach, after that ye have suffered, after ye have gone through something for a little while, he'll make you perfect, established, it's the same word. One is French and one is Germanic, right? So he will make us what? As Matthew 5:48 tells us, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven also is perfect. 1 Peter 5:9, hearing the same words of Christ, still preaching it, says, whom resist steadfast in faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the system. But the Elohim of all grace that has called you into eternal glory by Yechashvan, right? After that ye have suffered a while, he will make us perfect. And he will establish us, and he will strengthen us, and then he will settle us. Why is this important? Because in the New World Order, you're supposed to be inundated with so much stuff that you can't have a ready mind, that you can't be sober-minded. All the stuff that's thrown out there, Republican, Democrat, you can't be sober-minded. I saw a brother who I watched some of his stuff, and I enjoy some of his things. And he be cursing and fussing and doing all this crazy stuff and really putting stuff out there. And I didn't even realize this because I don't really look in his description. But apparently for all his description in his videos, he just gives a scripture to go with it. If you watch his videos, you would be like, I don't really understand how you putting scriptures with this. You know what I'm saying? And in his walk, he'll say, oh yeah, I'm really in my walk and I got tattoos. See, I got this scripture really means a lot to me, blah, blah. And I could see another side of him, but I was like, he doesn't even see, you know, how that works and how that operates. You know, he's a young cat from DC. He sounds like he might be from Northeast, Southeast, right? So, but he's a young head from DC, you know? That's how a lot of us be over there. He said, do this complete the mission of Yahweh. By time, surely mankind is at loss except those who practice Toba deeds daily with consistency. Fanatics and zealots are not sober. That too. Yeah, don't be a fan of Christ, the fanatic of Christ. Christ wants you to study to show that self-approved and have a relationship. You know, persons used to say that to me all the time. I'm glad that I've kind of fallen into the little spot that I've fallen into recently in time. Persons used to be like, "Oh man, I'm such a fan." I'd be like, I don't want fans. Fans are fanatics. That's why fans, you know, and then people don't want you to be fair weather fans because fair weather fans are not fanatic enough. Fair weather fans are not supportive when teams aren't doing what they're supposed to do. No, you're not supposed to support your team no matter what. That's craziness. First of all, you shouldn't be that inundated to where your whole life is based off of a team like that. But hey, I get it, to each their own, right? I had to take a whole ESPN fast just to get off of like being an apologist for a couple people. right? Like it can have you, it can hold you. But think about the logic of that, where persons are taught, don't be sober minded, don't be diligent, let your team or your owner or whatever do whatever they want, and then still remain connected to something that causes you literally some persons be having heart attacks and mental health issues and stuff because of teams that they're attached to. Be sober, be of a ready mind, be diligent or vigilant, right? And the New World Order is designed to get us off track. So I think I talked enough about that. I think we got the gist on that. It is almost 11, but we go a little bit late on Q&A days. Are there any other questions that I feel like I'm always missing stuff on Q&A days. It's the second day, so I'm going to try my best to see, even if they're made mention of, see if we can at least catch some of these real quick. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? I think, somebody asked, the next one was about, should you, well, yeah, so somebody asked specifically if I have, or if you, should you sue against racism at your job? I guess if you're asking from a position of, are we allowed to biblically? Yeah, the goal biblically is, so matter of fact, that's Sermon on the Mount as well. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26, I believe, is where it says, if you and somebody who walk in the way together have a beef or your argument, try your best to agree as soon as possible. If not, somebody's going to have to, eventually somebody will get arrested or a judge will have to get involved. And then the two of you will have to, we'll have to go through court and somebody's going to have to pay their debt to society down to the last penny, if you will. So, that's something that's in there. It actually is something that we should look into and look at. So if you are somebody who's going through that, so if there's more than that, we probably have to talk behind the scenes. But I mean, if you have more than adequate, even yes, adequate stuff, you know, make sure that you're ready to go on that. Make sure that it's actually something that they did something, not just only against the law, which you have federal laws on discrimination, you have state law on discrimination. So look into that. I would just give you a suggestion. Look into that. I would also say, if that's where you make sure you're led to do that, you're not just doing it off of emotion, because when the Most High is behind us, it's always going to work. And I would also say, uh, make sure that you study whatever they have as far as whatever their company rules, guidelines, etc. are, their statutes that they go by, because they have to go by what they go by. Like that's the reason why we have several TikTok channels, is because there was a time where, we were just doing activism, and then they kept lying on us, and then they took that channel down. I had listened to other persons, and we had already kind of started the Kofi_42. So once we got there, then they took down the first one. We started doing what we were doing, and we started shifting into where we are now. Actually, we really started doing the assembly thing, and a lot of persons came over from the activism thing. Then that one shut down. They shut that one down because they tried to say we were lying and stuff during 2020. Matter of fact, our channel that got taken down on YouTube, YouTube had to eventually give us lawfully. They had to allow us to get our information back, but they never even allowed us to get our information. So we have access to old videos and stuff. But we had to fight. And we didn't even have to fight in court, but I basically just wrote to the letters and was like, okay, you have to show me according to your standards, right? According to what you say is TikTok standards, YouTube standards, etc. Right? Like, for example, YouTube, when they shut down the first channel, they literally sent me a message saying the World Health Organization doesn't like that you're talking about woo woo woo. And then immediately they went on our channel and found 3 videos that actually didn't have anything to do with the World Health Organization, and then said strike, strike, strike. And when they went and did that, literally I was like, well, how are you going to tell me that first video you didn't like, about food that you should eat and the numbers and what's represented, and if something's sprayed or if it's organic or what the definition of organic is? How can you come against me with that, with knowing the number 5 in the 5-digit code, or if it's only 4-digit code, or number 9 in the 5-digit code? But I got it from another video that's been up for like 10 years. If you're not taking down that video, then how you gonna take down this one, right? Right. But I went and I looked at, so you're looking for what they have, what they say their stipulations are, what they say their criteria is, and then you look to see if they follow it, and if they don't follow it here, you got to ask them. So I would say, if you're going to sue your company, whatever it is, make sure you start thinking like that. to protect yourself. And you have to always, whenever it comes to any kind of debate, any kind of argument, right? Because arguments are supposed to have rules. Uh, if you're having true debate or true argument, you have to think like the person you're arguing against, or you even have to be able to outthink them, and you should be able to argue their case better. This is why persons will come to us and they'll say, "Oh man, you know what? Racism not real." I immediately already am ready. I'm like, "Oh, okay, racism not real." Well, do you not see color? And that person, I already right. You now you can, even though you're not supposed to, but you can lead the witness. You know what I'm saying? You know, we're always trying to lead the witness. You're just trying not to lead them in a certain way to where technically you can't do it, right? So you're trying to lead the witness, right? So somebody comes to me, racism not real. Okay, so you don't see color. I'm already leading because I already know how you think. There's only one of several ways. You're not giving me anything new with racism's not real. So I already know where we're headed. I already know who you got the information from, even if you don't know where you got it from. If you just saw a piece of something somewhere, you were raised by somebody that's bigoted, I already know where you're coming from. So, hey, you don't see color? Yeah, I don't see color. They say proudly. What do I hit them with next? Okay, well then you shouldn't drive because you're a danger to society, right? You're ready to think like even the person you're arguing with, right? Sometimes you even have to know. See, this is why it's important to even know thyself. I'm taking this somewhere else now. Kind of done with that. If you have more questions, comments, and concerns, we can talk kind of offline. I just want to throw this in there. Holy Spirit just kind of showed me something real quick. Hey, this is why you have to know thyself, because Yah will come to you, and He will tell you about who you really are, and who you are right now is not where you're supposed to be, and you'll start having an argument within yourself about what you in your experience know and what the one who has all knowledge of what's happened past, present, and future, right? You're having a conversation about you. And so you have to know, sometimes even you have to know what your argument is, right? And I don't mean to try and win. I'm talking about you have to know your argument, because Yah is the one who's right. He's the one who's righteous. You're the one who can only see a part of it. So a lot of times, even when we're dealing with stuff like depression or anxiety or different things like that, it's because Yah's telling us to do something, and you have to know. You have to really like be in tune with yourself. You know what, Kofi, you already know. I'm talking about me. You know what I mean? I'm talking about me, where I've come from, and even some of the stuff I still do. Kofi, you already know that you have a lot of insight and a lot of intel. You're gonna have to put that to the side for a second, because he's putting you in a place that you've never been before, right? I might have to go, okay, Kofi, you are trying to move something that where persons have never done it before, and even though they might have faith in it, they might not have ever worked it before. How can you make it more comfortable for them to work it, or how can you work it enough by yourself right now and still not drive yourself crazy and drive your body crazy, right? Okay, Kofi, you are about to go through a season where you're preaching and teaching everybody things, and they're accelerating, they're doing better financially than you, and they're busy saying why they don't have it. Meanwhile, they don't know that you were walking up and down the street for 2 3 hours because you having vehicle issues, and they have not a clue. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not trying to say this to be sad or blah blah. I'm saying you have to, and because Yah's telling me something different than what I see, or He's telling me something different than what I think is going to happen. We just talked about the lawsuit, Russell. I'm sorry if you weren't on. I thought you were on still. So if you have other questions, you can contact me. But it's on. So if you go to YouTube, you probably it says it's So what is this, 162? So if you went back to probably like 145, which I guess would be 2 hours and 25 minutes or so. If you rewind there and start from there, you should be able to hear what we were saying there. I apologize for that. I thought you were on. Um, uh, but yeah, but it's recorded. I guess I can. Yeah, I would. If you know the do you have access to the YouTube channel? Hashtag find Kofi. Hashtag FINDKOFI. Or are you saying you have more questions about it? Because if it's more questions, like I said, we probably have to do it offline. It's probably smarter, to be honest, to do it offline, because anything that you say or do can be held against you, and that's not just when you arrested. That's literally in a court of law, right? So some of that stuff you might want to talk about offline, and maybe I can put you in, put you on game, or put somebody, send you to somebody else that can help. No, it's not a dashiki I'm wearing. Dashiki is the material, right? This is not the material. This is dashiki. It's Afro print, if you will. I don't even know if it's that, if it would be called that. I got the pants somewhere around here. I forget what you call this material. It's not quite. It's very soft. It's not quite silk. I forget what it is, but but anyways, yeah, dashiki is the material. Somehow dashiki print has become a thing recently because of lack of, people keeping culture and stuff. But dashiki is not a print; it's a material. People call it dashiki print because usually certain types of symbols, or even Ndinka symbols, will be on certain types of stuff. And did I say shalom, Sister Takwa? Dante, thanks for being on. Everybody, we appreciate you. But if there be no other questions for today, I will let you guys go. We will be back. We will be on this evening. I apologize for yesterday evening. I just had to get some stuff together. And if I be honest, I had to get my headspace together a little bit yesterday too, on some things that I got to improve in, or just figure out how to be, better in for personal reasons. So, but we will be back on this evening for our Shalom King say. We will be back on this evening for our live session, 8 p.m. New York time, and I will do a I'll be on at 9 p.m. New York time for the I'm sorry, y'all, for our graft-in sessions. For those that want to come out, it's not an equivalent per se, but it's basically our version, if you will, of the new members classes. So if you are part of us and if you'd like to see what's going on and things of that nature, also too, don't forget, spread out all over social media. We've been making sure that we've been doing our due diligence. We put everywhere where you could find information for to update your stuff for SOC, so we can have a new database. So it should be on this video, really yesterday's video onward, or yesterday's videos onward. You should see clear in there and in the description for the videos, especially if you're on Facebook or YouTube. You should be able to see that to be able to fill it out. But we put it in Facebook on different platforms on Facebook. We put it in TikTok. We put it on YouTube, in the post area. Clapper, I'm not sure if I put it there, but I'll try to make sure that it's there as well. We had it in IG. So you can look at all these different places, all these different platforms. You should be able to get all this different information and see what's going on. But thank you all. I appreciate you. We're going to do our shout out. If you don't know how the shout out works, you got to join us on TikTok for it. You can look for that information on TikTok, either on our link tree, or you can just look right here in the description in the videos if you want to come on over and join us. How you doing, Brother Bradley? Tires, how you doing? We appreciate you. We thank you so much. Oh, you said if we have time. Okay, yeah, we have a little bit. I was kind of doing the closeout. Let me get my mind back in it. Hold on. Galatians. Okay, real quick. Galatians chapter 3, verses 10 through 13. Okay, so somebody brought this up yesterday. I wanted to make sure. So just real quick, and then we'll take our leave. So when you look up Galatians chapter 10, 3 through 13, I'm going to do this. When you study, when you research something, one of the things that will help you is recognizing, especially if you're looking at the culture of how we look at things. Whenever you're trying to answer something or look at what something is, you should probably look at the law first mentioned, which is one thing. Now, I don't know what this law is called, so forgive me. I'm gonna make up a term. I'll try to find the other term at some point, but I'm just make up a term to get us through this for today, so we'll at least comprehend it. We can have something to agree on terminology wise. I would also say look at where you're head. Look at the law of where you're headed. Right, that's what vision is. Vision is I know where I'm headed. Purpose is what I do every day to get where I'm headed, but vision is where I'm headed, right? So I would say to anybody that wants to talk about law in Galatians, we also talked about Colossians chapter 2 a lot yesterday as well, but we did talk about Galatians to answer the Colossians 2 question. If you look at Galatians, Brother Bradley, what you're going to do is don't just focus on Galatians chapter 3 where everybody says we're going to try. Now, I'll read it, right? But I want you to comprehend that once again we're talking about the same Paul who said the law is holy, the law is perfect, the law is pure, the law of the Spirit is what we should follow. We should make sure that we know the 10 Commandments. We got to get back to the law of Moses. We should make sure Paul keeps saying this over and over and over and over again in a lot of his teachings, right? But specifically in Galatians, if we go to Galatians 5, verse 22 and 23, we'll see where we're headed. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, 23 is what we call the fruit, or the fruit, not plural, fruits, but the fruit or fruits of the Spirit. That fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, being like Elohim, faithfulness, meekness, and temperance. Against such there is no law, right? But I would submit to thee that we also need to then be honest about what comes before that. So if I were to say, let's go back a little bit to Galatians chapter 5, verse 16, we'll see where we're headed in context. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 says this: This I say, then, walk, or which also in the Greek can mean live. So live or walk in ravak, in the Spirit. And ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh, which Paul said in Romans, that if we know what, he wouldn't know what lust was if it was not for the law that said, do not covet. So we already know Paul's mind. Once again, we want to look at this as a manual. What does manual mean? Manual means the mind of the Creator, right? The mind of the Creator that guided the mind of Paul has Paul tell us as the vessel that you need to be careful about lust. But Paul's mindset in lust is Yah's mindset in lust, because Paul says, I wouldn't know what lust was if it was not for law. All right. Verse 17, for the flesh lusteth against the Spirit. That's why we have law of the Spirit and law of the flesh, right? Law of the Spirit, law of sin. And the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things ye would. But if ye be led by the Spirit, ye are not under the law. Now watch this. Which law are we talking about? This is when it gets difficult, because we don't have context. Which law? Yeah, we have Minister Keita, who does soaps. And believe and shea butter. We have Sister Beverly who does shea butter. So Brother Rodney, if you're able to, if you can text me or email me or something like that, I'll get you all that information to be able to send out to them, and we'll get you what you need. No problem. Right? Right? But back to so the law, you are not under the law. Which law? Now, first of all, this is even something that's interesting as well, because we're talking about the law of sin. So there are Hebrew Israelites till this day who take the law but only use it to whip people upside, blah, blah, this and that, and they themselves don't follow the actual law by the character. To these persons, we should be worried about. But here, Paul says, but if you be led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. Now watch this, though. Now the works of the flesh are manifest. Watch this. We're going to go back to Galatians 3 in a second, I promise. But watch this just real quick. Galatians 5, verse 19. Now the works, right? So your works matter. The works of the flesh are manifest, which are these. What are the works of the flesh? The works of the flesh are are adultery, right? So that's being married and stepping out. Fornication, that's any false image of marriage, porneia. Uncleanness, that's being unlawful. So he's not saying law doesn't matter at all, because once again, we got to get context. If Paul mentions cleanliness, cleanliness is lawfulness. So he's not talking about the law that we think. Now he's dealing with Colossians and some Hebrew Israelites who are coming together, mixing together, and some Hebrew Israelites who still are looking at law but trying to make law work for what they wanted to. And if we be honest, not allowing those who are strangers to have an opportunity to learn how to not break the law, right? It's one thing to say, okay, you've been around us for 2 years, why are you still eating pork? That might be a genuine conversation to have. It's another thing to where this person's eating pork, and because they're eating pork, we say, I can't preach the word to you because you eat pork, right? There's a difference, right? So we're having a different type of remember, even the book of Acts tells us what's going on through this whole cycle that we'll start reading even further and further and further. In the book of Acts, Acts of the Apostles, is talking about all the arguments and things and where do we stand, and well, if the law is not this and blah blah. And Peter would not eat unclean things, but he realized he could talk to a person that he used to think was unclean. He could not preach, or he could not eat the unclean thing, but he could preach to the person that ate the unclean thing. He had to learn that, right? That's the context. So watch this. Galatians 5:19. Now the works, right? Adultery, fornication, uncleanness, which is unlawfulness, lasciviousness. Verse 20, idolatry, right? Worshiping things idols, things that you shouldn't be worshiping, witchcraft, right? Trying to control somebody with certain things, hatred, right? Hatred, and hatred in a sense, there's a Greek sense and a Hebrew sense, and I don't have time for that today. But hatred, variance, you move back and forth, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, right? Murders, drunkenness. These are all lawful things, right? Drunkenness, revel, or things against the law, revelings, and such like, of which I tell you, or of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Why? Because they're breaking the law, right? Because they're breaking the law, right? But then, verse 22 and 23, here we go. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, but means cancel and separate what we were just talking about. But the fruit of the Spirit, okay, I once again, if you'd like to reach out, we've already told you how that works. I have to mute you just because we have to make sure that persons aren't looking at your stuff, right? Okay, if you'd like to be part of the shout out, I'll put you back on. If you can just wait and be, you know, you don't want to hear obedient or whatever, but if you can just listen for a couple minutes, and then we'll tell you how to put that on. We don't want your stuff. That also does shut us down because of that. Okay, I got to mute that part. I can't have you having your number on there. All right, but you can, if you listen long enough, we'll talk. You can reach out for sure. Right. I don't know if you want me to have a Q&A session outside of a Q&A session. That's what the Q&A session is for. But we can talk for a little bit, or whatever the case might be, if as schedule allows for both sides. All right, but where was I at? Sorry. So, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, right? Being like Elohim, or what people call goodness, faith, meekness, humility, and temperance. Against such there is no law. So Paul is saying, if you have the fruit of the Spirit, that in of itself, especially in you coming into this nation and being grafted in, yeah, there is no law against those things. Now, it's not your version of love, right? Joy, peace, long suffering is Yah's, right? By this, John 13, by this will men know that you are my disciples, by the way that you love one another. And do not show each other your love, but show each other the love of Yahushua. By that love will men know you are his disciples. You're disciplined under him, right? So that being said, that's where we're headed, right? That's where we're headed in Galatians, right? It's not the end of Galatians, because then after that we have to even go into don't let your brother be overtaken in the fault and all that stuff. But that's where we're headed. So watch this. Back to Galatians chapter 3 now. And we got it right. 3 verses 10 through 13. I believe that's what you asked. For as many are as the works of the law under the curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. Question. Does Christ say, question, does Christ say in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48, does Christ say, not does Kofi say, not do we say, not this, does Christ say in Matthew 5:48, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven also is perfect? Shalom, Owls, how you doing? Does Christ say that, not Kofi? Does your Bible say that in red on the Sermon on the Mount, during the Sermon on the Mount, recorded for us through the prism of Mattatayach or Matthew? Does it say in Matthew 5:48, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven also is perfect? All right. And Brother Bradley said yes, and this is your question. So that's the real person I'm looking for, right? So since it says that, Brother Bradley, everybody else, yes, thank you. I'm just saying you asked the question, right? So since that says yes, then what does Christ talk about in the Sermon on the Mount? Does he talk about law? Yes, he does. Matthew chapter 5, verse 11 and 12. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. As a reminder, Matthew chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. Right? When we obey the prophets and who came before us and follow that law, then persons, if they get upset about us because we do so, we should rejoice and be exceeding glad as long as it's under the direction and the authority of Yahushua. Right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but I came not to destroy the law. I came that it might be fulfilled. Until heaven and earth pass away, should not one jot or tittle of this law pass in any wise. Those who do not teach the law and and I'm sorry, those who teach against the law and do not live the law are considered by the kingdom standards to be the least, but those that teach the law and live by it and teach others, they're considered to be the greatest. And you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, right? Matthew 5:48, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven also is perfect, right? That means if we follow the word, we follow the law the way it's supposed to be originally, initially, then we won't be poor in spirit. But even if we are now, following the law can help to make sure that the kingdom belongs to us. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Do unto others as you want done unto you. What is the standard? For this is the law and the prophets. All right. So if Christ says all that about being perfect and about the law, let's go back now to Galatians chapter 3, verse 10. For as many are the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them, which is true. Every time that we don't follow the law, we are cursed. Right? So this is where now persons have to put faith and works together, or so-called grace and mercy and faith and works and law together, because it's not by itself. All of this is holy, holistic. It goes together. Right? So watch this. He says something, Galatians chapter 3, verse 11, but no man is justified by the law in the sight of Elohim. It is evident, for the just shall live by faith. And the law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them. The law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them. So what you have been taught, what we have been taught, is that this must mean that therefore we can't live inside of the law, even though Christ has told us, be ye perfect as your Father is perfect, and he keeps telling us about law. But what if we put verse 13 behind it, which is what you asked about? Verse 13, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. So even if I fall, Christ has redeemed me from the curse of the law. If I want to stay outside of the law, I can remain in the curse, or I can repent and come back into Christ. It is not an excuse to not follow it. Right? If Christ had not died, all the stuff that Christians want you to believe that Paul is talking, because that's really what's going on. All the stuff that Christians want you to believe that Paul is talking and saying that we don't have to follow any laws. If Christ didn't die, if you didn't follow the law, would it be acceptable? If Christ didn't die, if you followed the law, would it be acceptable? Start with the fact that Christ's death is first. Paul even says, the same Paul says, if it wasn't for the death, if you don't believe in that Yehoshua actually physically was on earth and that he actually gave up the ghost, then he says everything else is a part of the conversation is dead. Right? So what happens with this is the law, is that Christ followed the law. By following the law, right, he now has allowed it to where we can get into heaven. And remember, where are we headed? Revelation chapter 20, verses 12 and 13. The angels will be looking through the scrolls to see what you did according to the scrolls. If you do not do what the scrolls say, then your name will not be in the book of life or the scroll of life. So we know where we're headed, right? This is where we're headed. The law, I don't know what we're going to call it, but the law of where we're headed, the law of vision, whatever. We know where we're headed. This is where the end is. This is where the eschatology, this is where Esau is the end of the world and Israel will be the beginning of everything else. Revelation 21 and 22, after that, is going to be talking about us going to heaven and being in heaven at that point. We're not going to be talking about if that. So we have to obey the law. We have to obey the scrolls. Whatever's in the scrolls, we have to do. But watch this. And it can be confusing once again because of context. Context for many is coming from a place of, I don't want to follow the law. I shouldn't have to follow the law. So it's hard because some persons don't have ears to hear this. So, you might be trying to describe this to somebody, Brother Bradley, and it might not still work, right? So verse 13, Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law. He redeemed us from the curse of the law. Once again, there's two laws, right? There's one way of looking at the same law. There's the law of the spirit, the way it was always supposed to be, and the law of sin, or what we call, sometimes to help persons to get it, the law of the flesh. We put our flesh on it, and now we have made something different out of it, right? But even if we take that away, let's just say we're dealing with the law of the spirit by itself. What Christ has done to redeem, which word means to be reconsidered. So you are reconsidered different as far as you were not cursed. Because, yes, every time you broke the law, you deserve death. So every single time you sin, you deserve hell. Every single time. But when Christ went to hell for you, that means that if every time I sin, I do what is lawful and repent, then it is if I have not broken the law. Did you catch that? You catch that little nugget in there? Does that make sense? Does that little nugget in there help? If every time that I have sinned, I realize there's one who did not sin, and I repent and come back into him as my Lord and Savior, then it is as if I have never sinned. That is why I'm not cursed. He became a curse for me, so that when I sin, I can acknowledge it, come back into position, and go right back to obeying every jot and tittle. Right? Curse is everyone who hangs from a tree. I deserve to be the one hanging from the tree, from the tithe, from the cross. Right? not that other tree. Right? I deserve death. I deserve to be the one that's cursed. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He followed the law, so should we. Right? So as long as we follow the law, right? No problem, Brother Bradley. Thank you for the question that forces us to go in depth. Yeah. So as long as we follow that law, we're righteous, right? Lawful standing. That's what righteousness means. However, when we mess up and sin, we must, as soon as we know how, we should immediately say, I repent, please set me on the right path, and go back to following the law again. When we do that, the curse that should be upon us is no longer upon us, but is upon Christ. And even if we don't know, now this is when the so-called grace conversation has a little bit more merit than what we like to believe, because even when I don't know that I've sinned, there's a lot of times that I don't. I do not. I am unaware that I'm sinning, right? I might be thinking that I'm doing something proper and might not realize that I've actually lied to somebody. I might tell somebody I'm going to do blah, blah, and not realize in the future, oh, I might not be able to do that. I might say to have a teaching to somebody, trying to teach them mathematics, and then give them something that doesn't even work. And come to find out, I messed up somebody in their school stuff, and I got to get my mind better, right? There's a lot of ways we sin. But even if it's unknown, this is why on the tithe, while he was a curse for me, he started confessing certain things. Abba, source, Father, forgive him. Forgive Kofi. He might not know what he's about to do. Right? This day, not further away, but this day, Kofi might not realize it, but he's already with me in paradise. When I leave here, I'll make sure that mothers are taken care of by their sons and sons are taken care of by their mothers. When you think when you think of all that stuff as far as my Elohim, why has you forsaken me? When he said that, that's the first part of Psalm 22. That's not being forsaken. He's actually saying that we've snatched the victory from the jaws of defeat. Right? When he says, I thirst, he's telling you that he's separated for the first time from the Most High and he became thirsty for righteousness. And they're saying that those who hunger and thirst after righteousness because of my sacrifice, you shall be filled. When he says it is finished, that means that it was finished before you were born. Because he already died for you. He already made the decision to die for you. Even if he hadn't been on the earth yet, anybody that was before him, he had already made the decision. It's already finished. Just be obedient. And Father, into thine hands. He put it in the Father's hands. We're in his hands. And he told the Father before he passed, or before he gave it the ghost, he said, Father, I'm thankful that those that you have put in my hands that cannot be plucked. He said, Father, into thine hands, I commend my spirit. I recommend my spirit for your hands to do with what you will. That's what we come across. He became a curse and confessed all those things. Didn't say anything else on there except those things. And then with a loud cry, with all the agony that he went through, a cry that was strong enough to cause men to tremble. With a loud ah that echoed and echoed and echoed. He gave up the ghost. And then went to hell. And not just became a living sacrifice, but became a sacrifice, period, for you and I. So that when he came up, whatever he's a fellow heir to, we are fellow heirs to, and he has all power in heaven and earth in his hand. that in his name every knee would bow and everything above and in earth, above earth, and beneath it, and every tongue would confess, would have the same logic, whether they want to or not at some point, that he is in fact Adam. Adam. Tada Adam. Aman. All righty. So that's all that we got for today. Thank you so much. We'll be back on tomorrow. We'll be back on this evening. Kofi_42 on TikTok, right here on the same place on YouTube. And we'll be on Zoom 9 p.m. And we'll try to have it recorded, but we'll be on Zoom 9 p.m. New York time to make up for last night. So we can continue our grafting sessions. If you miss it, it will be recorded, and you can look for the audio version of it. It will be out. But thank you all. Tada, my shepaching. I thank you so much. I appreciate you. We honor you, and we look forward to having you guys on again. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Sisters, don't forget tomorrow, you're supposed to have the women's meeting at 7 p.m. New York time. And we still do have a family in need for those that are able to help. But for everybody who's on here, appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. And hope and great. Hope that you guys continue to do great, marvelous, majestic, outstanding things. And those who would like to be part of the shout out, come over and join us on TikTok as we get ready to have the music play. We'll do a brief shout out, and then we'll have to talk to you guys later on. Early Shabbat Shalom to you guys who are following the Gregorian calendar. Still Shan Shalom for those who are following the Hebrew calendar. We appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, again. And as always, whether you joined us from Clapper, podcast, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, live later on, remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.